Hi, good evening. Welcome to the Warrant Committee. It's March 24th, 2025. Karen, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. We have Tom Caldwell, Steve Rhines, Lori Connolly. On Zoom, we have Liz Dillon, Jay Fundling, Allison Gagnon, Macy Lee is here, Peter Mott is here, Julia Maxwell is on Zoom, Brian McGuire is here, and on Zoom we have Aman Nagasi, Ron Sia, and Judy Steele. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. We have two speakers tonight to discuss the fiscal 26 budget with. We have Chief Madden from the Fire Department, and we have Marina Fernandez from DPW. I have some information about the meetings and some things concerning this week, but why don't we just get right into the speaker because we started a little late. So, Chief Madden, I'd invite you up to the microphone. Chief Madden from our Milton Fire Department, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, looking forward. Everyone was looking forward to speaking with you. We had a colleague over in the police department last week come in, and we had a nice conversation with him, so I'm sure we'll have the same with you. So, Chief, just in terms of, obviously we know there's a lot going on in the town.
I heard.
Just about the budgets and obviously the override and underride situations that we have, and we just really wanted to ask some questions of you, not only about just your budget under the current situation now with the override, potential override, but obviously any difficulties you may face if that override does not go through, and just maybe just a general accounting of the department from your point of view, and anything else you'd like to share with us that you'd like us to discuss with the town.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And Macy Lee, thank you very much. And Ms. Dillon, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with me and discuss my budget or our budget in detail. The fire department budget is pretty straightforward. Predominantly, it's all staffing. And in our budget, you can see exactly how much everybody makes, all the stipends and everything else. It's all listed clearly. And, we do have some ancillary stuff, training and basically that's pretty much it. There's really not a lot to our budget to deal with, A lot of things have changed in the last year, obviously with the new firehouse. One of the things that we're looking at is, one of the increases is the electricity. When you go from an old building that's much smaller to a new building that's much larger, and the updated heating and cooling, it's definitely a challenge to try and budget that. And in our budget, you can see there's about 4 or 5 pages of our electrical bills for this year. So just so we can try and figure out what it's going to be for the next year. It was hard. We move in January, and we've been in there for just over a year now to figure out what our budget is on that. So those are the challenges with it, and then just making sure that we have the proper staffing. Anything that you'd like me to go into further, or I don't know how much, that you've looked into the budget, or, I don't want to, go over something that, you don't have a question of, or,
Well, you know what, I'll turn it over to Macy, and I know, Liz Gillen spoke to you briefly, so I don't know if it's Macy or Liz online, if there's anything that you'd like to highlight generally for the committee about what you learned.
I do, for sure.
Okay.
Can I start?
The floor is yours. Yeah, go right ahead, Macy.
Good evening, Chief McFadden. So I know when we met back on November 14th, one of the things that you highlighted and resonate with me are some of your supplemental needs. And I remember I have a list of them from that time when we met. So the first one I wanted to ask you is, do you have an assistant chief right now?
We don't.
Okay.
As far as administrative staff, it's myself, Lieutenant Mataliano, that's in fire prevention, and then the administrative assistant, Kim O'Connor. Basically, everything that we do at the fire department comes down to myself. There's, you look at Lieutenant Mataliano, he's been extremely busy. The fire prevention office was created around 2005, and that was the last time that we've really changed anything in our makeup. 2005, 2006, and we're just getting so busy. Every permit, every building, every new building, every plan, all the liquor licenses, everything goes through the fire prevention officer. If you do a home renovation and you have to file a permit, and you move a smoke detector, he has to take a look at it and sign off on it. When I was doing some of the preparatory for this was, he's responsible for over 800 inspections, fire drills, permits a year. That's pretty lengthy. You look at, a new building that we're trying to figure out the budgeting on him and how to figure out something like, the ice house project. And we're close to about 30 hours alone just on the ice house project, just that project alone. And, they recently just did some testing there. Every device has, so the assistant chief, so basically, when you ask that, it kind of goes into twofold, right? Is the fire prevention officer, the administrative stuff, he's overwhelmed and just has a tremendous amount of work. And then, anything that he can't handle, then it goes right back to me, or anything that I need him to take a look at, we go back and forth. And we go through something like the Ice House project together a lot, You do the site plan and take a look and make sure the site plan works. And then we go through the plans and you review all the plans, making sure everything's in the exact same spot. And we have conversations about what should be done, what shouldn't be done, where should the smoke detectors be, where should everything go. Something like, philosophical, where are we with like EV chargers? Should they be inside? Should they be outside? Is there enough fire protection in there if they are inside? Should they be outside? So, going back and forth with the contractors and the developers, these projects take a lot of time. So, when you look at how busy the administration is, just not having an assistant chief is extremely, it's tough. It's tough. A lot of the stuff gets put on the day-to-day staff. The deputy chiefs, I lean on the deputy chiefs a lot. The deputy chiefs, in charge of our record management system, our IT. It's, they do it. We had a problem with with our vendor, and the deputy chief would email him, then 2 days later, he would get the email back because he's off for those couple of days. And then his next shift, he'd come back and do that. And obviously, I would CC on that, and I'd try and handle that and go back and forth. And then, there's just a lot going on. Vehicle maintenance, building these firehouses. I love the opportunity to build a firehouse, but I can't wait for a day that I don't have to oversee that project. And the Fire Station Building Committee does an amazing job with our OPM. But it still comes down to me because I'm the person that's there at the time. So you look at these larger projects, you look at the MBTA communities and trying to figure out where we are with that and where fire prevention, the role fire prevention will play in something like that when we start changing zonings. All these buildings going up, the 40Bs, fire prevention is there. Then you just look at the day-to-day operations and the changes in the fire service. The fire service has changed drastically in the 24 years that I've been on. You did a couple of medicals, you did, a couple fires, you did a couple of car accidents, and now, you get hazardous materials that's become prevalent, and you got, something like the active shooters, like that is changing thing, right? The hostile events that we respond to now. And it's not even just the active shooter, it's the mental health calls that we still go to. All the medicals, we did changed about 4,500 incident responses this year. So, 4,500 incidences that we have. And so when you go back to that, the training that we have to do, and that's all dictated by myself. And we do have a training officer. We give him a stipend, but again, he's on shift. The training officer, he actually had a doctor's appointment today and was in the area, so he stopped in and we talked for an hour. Like on his own time, we talked about, about some different trainings that we could have coming up. So, so having the assistant chief and just, being able to delegate some of the work. One of the things that I would love to see is, is our website. You know what I mean? I haven't touched it. Every time I try and sit down and look at it, I was looking at like Hanover, Mass. They've got a great fire, you know what I mean? They do, but they have 5 or 6 people in their administrative staff, that handle that, And I keep it there. It's on my desk, and I sit there and I thumb through it. And I'm like, man, this is nice. This would be great, But it's just every time I sit down to do something, something else happens and I get called away from my desk. And so the assistant chief is definitely a position that would be great.
I remember when we had scheduled, can I continue, Chair?
Yeah, and then I'm going to go to Liz after this next one.
I remember when we met, we had to cancel our meeting several times because of the brush fires that are happening in the Blue Hills.
Yes.
Has that impact the climate change that we're all experiencing? Has that impact the need for additional staff? For example, you had mentioned about how you don't have enough staff for the apparatus that's required. Can you discuss that too?
Sure. So the NFPA, which is basically the NFPA sets the standards across the country and across the world for firefighting. They do a lot of fire prevention. They do electrical code. They do the life safety code. They do all of that. One of the things that they do is they is what your staffing should be. In a perfect world, to a well-involved building fire, we should have 17 firefighters responding and on scene in the first 10 minutes. Milton has 11. Our minimum staffing is 11. We have 3 engines in town. Obviously, one here at headquarters, one at Atherton Street, which is engine 4, and then the one in East Milton is engine 2. Each of those engines has a lieutenant and 2 firefighters, so you have 3 firefighters on each of the engines. The ladder truck that we have that's stationed here has 1 firefighter. The NFPA says you should have 4 firefighters, when you look at it, when I first became chief and you look at the problem, you look at what's the easiest way to solve this, right? Obviously, the easiest way is to put more people there, but when you're limited by your budget, and again, we've been level service budgeted for
How long?
since about 2005, 2006.
Okay.
And 2001 is actually after September 11, 2001, when I got on. I was one of the 4 people that were added, so that was the last time that they've added any staffing. They actually just, when the fire prevention officer came, they just took a firefighter off the line and they put him in that position. So we've never really made up that spot. So when I looked at the supplemental needs, I asked for 5 firefighters, and 4 firefighters would be to 1 person each shift to be a second person, to go from 11-man minimum or 1 person on the ladder to a 12-person minimum with a second person on the ladder. And one of the things that I did when I became chief was we need a new ladder truck. The ladder truck is old, and we've got the money and everything else. It's just since COVID, the ladder trucks are 36 to 48 month wait. We ordered it back in 2002. I'm hoping to get it any year now. Yeah, it's a problem across the country. If you watch the LA fires, one of the things they talked about is just the availability of new apparatus. They were down 40 engines or something like that. So the ladder truck, and what we purchased, was a tower ladder. So it's not just a straight ladder. You actually have a bucket. It's a safer platform to work from, if you go above the fire. And, one of the things I said, that year is, the life safety is getting above the reach of the Milton Fire Department. The Milton Fire Department is built for 1- and 2-story buildings, right? Maybe a 3rd story, but now we're starting to have these 4- or 5-story. We have a couple of 5-story, a couple 6-story buildings already in town, but they're minimum, and now these buildings are coming up more and more. So it's becoming a challenge. And so obviously, that those 5 firefighters they would put us every group so we have 4 groups of 14, 3 groups of 14, 1 group of 13. It would put all 4 groups to 15 firefighters, and that would be able to staff all the apparatus go to 12-person minimum, and then, you'd have if somebody's out on vacation or somebody's on sick time or, somebody's out injured. It's an extremely physical job that we do have some injuries. I hope I answered your question about that staffing question. Yeah, that's really important.
Yes.
I'll come back to you.
ahead. Yeah, of course.
Liz had a question online, Chief.
Sure.
I have a political question. Thank you. And I'm sorry that I'm not there, but I am ill, so I'm staying away so as not to make you all sick.
Thank you,
But-
Liz.
Sure. When I talk to you, Chief Madden, one of the things that I think really sort of will give people some context when we're talking about some of these positions. So I think explaining, you did just briefly, but explaining really all what the fire department does. So it was so interesting to me talking to you about sort of what our fire prevention officer, all of the things that he does. So going to every single new building that's built and making sure that the fire prevention is all met. Coming back to buildings sort of before they're built, after they're built, testing fire safety equipment, going to all of the hospital, the Curry College, all the daycares, all the schools, doing fire drills, working with the police, trying to do active shooter drills, and then also this sort of training position so that we can have sort of in-house training and how that would save us money. So I thought it was very interesting to me, also because you're all firefighters. What I thought was very interesting is, though you're the fire chief and you're very, focused on administrative things, as we were talking about it, you were building the new fire station, and then as Macy said, you have to then go away to fight fires. You're doing all this work, administering and doing this administrative, and then you have to leave and then go fight fires yourself. And so I think that it's important for people to have an understanding of all of the work that you all do, responding as the first responder to every kind of emergency, as you said. But then also, I wasn't even aware that every year all of these systems have to be tested in all of these buildings. And then you're doing the fire drills with all the daycares, all the schools, the hospital, all of these things, and constantly testing. And then, I thought it was very interesting too, regarding that tower, like the ladder truck, to have, we don't even have sort of the standard of what we should have at this time. So that was kind of the one context that I wanted to add. And I'm sure you're going to get to it, Macy, but I'm just curious about, maybe we'll talk about this later, but with the override, sort of what departmental changes you would see, whether it passes or whether it doesn't pass, or if you think that's going to have an impact on you all. Thank you.
Sure. So I think I appreciate all that you said. And yes, the job is really, 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 a lot of people don't have an idea of everything that we do. We have a ton of things. I mean, if someone calls 911 and if it's not a cop thing, it becomes a fire thing. So we've gone from, birds, animals in the house to, floods to, whoever thought you'd be rescuing 7 people off a trolley stranded in a couple feet of water, you know what I mean? So you talk to, about the climate change. I mean, everything that we do, it's just sometimes it's part of I think it's probably one of the greatest things about the job is that it's no 2 days are the exact same. But so we do that, and I do respond, for a working fire, which is all of Milton's 11 firefighters on scene, all 3 engines in the ladder. If you have a bedroom fire, we declare it a working fire. Anything a working fire and above, second alarm, third alarm, or something like that, I respond. I take, I don't take command, but I can take command. The deputies, we have 4 deputies that run the shifts, and they do an amazing job of running an incident. They're very, very well trained at incident command, but the incidents are getting strange. You know what I mean? So it's not just your normal car accident, building fire, and stuff like that. So we're constantly training, we're constantly doing that, and I think that the last part of the question for Ms. Dillon was, what effects would the override if it doesn't pass? I've had a lot of conversations with the town administrator, and I know that we've talked a couple of different things, a couple of different scenarios, and it's tough, I think it'd probably be a couple positions, probably 2 firefighters. I think it was someplace around like 250,000, 260,000. So it was 2 firefighter positions. $20,000 out of my technology. There's a couple technology, IT platforms that I would like to introduce to the town, or introduce to the fire department, and one would be the town. And then there would be a $40,000 reduction in new equipment. And obviously, when you look at, I think one of the things that I was talking to somebody recently is, when I first started as chief, it was $25,000 for the set of Jaws of Life. Well, now it's probably $20,000, and the Jaws of Life has the spreaders, the cutters, and as it called, a RAM. So now it's like $20,000 per piece. So, it's like $40,000 to $50,000 for a new set of jaws. And it's just one of those things where inflation is just taken over. Everything in the fire service, like I said, the fire engines alone, when Chief Grant before me was buying an engine, it was $450,000. Well, when I bought, right after we purchased the ladder truck, we went for an engine that was $850,000. And I'm looking for another engine next year because we have a 3-year, 36-month wait. That's at $1.2 million now. So everything in the fire service is just, so that $40,000 reduction would be detrimental to anything we purchase. And then, the final piece of that would be a $25,000 reduction in overtime. So when you look at losing 2 firefighters, and you look at a $25,000 reduction in overtime, well, to keep that 11-person minimum, it'd be a real challenge. It's been a real challenge the last couple of years where we've always been level service, so we don't really get that huge increase in to be where we are with overtime. So the overtime budget would definitely hurt, and we would have to have a really, really good year with injuries and making sure everyone takes their vacation and their sick time. And, this year we had 5 members have children. So, you know what I mean? So hopefully they got it out of their system. So next year, if we do, it doesn't happen again. So it's just a challenge when you do that. So when you do lose those positions, it would hurt. It would hurt the fire department tremendously to not go.
Hey, Chief, I have a question for you, a couple, actually.
Sure.
I'm going to follow up on the new ladder truck with a bucket off the end of that.
Yep.
When did you say you ordered that?
I believe it was 22.
Okay, all right.
Did I mistake?
No, I thought you said 2002. I was like,
Oh, yeah, sorry, 22 I meant. I'm sorry, 22, yes.
welcome to what my family will tell you. I can't hear anything. So,
Now that you say it, I think I did say 2002. So.
no, you're fine. So I've got a question. So I might get the acronym wrong, but I think you said the NFCA?
NFPA.
NFPA. So they set the standards for staffing.
Yep.
And ideally they want a set level. Are there any sort of like insurance penalties or anything if we're below what they're recommending for us? If you're saying we're like 5 short?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's an insurance, but one of the things, and goes back to Miss Lee's question about, the assistant chief, there's something that we do, the ISO, the insurance. So they rate your fire department, and I think we're a class 3 department right now.
Okay.
And one of the things, or a couple of things that they look at is they look at your ability to, staff everything. So that does count a little bit, but they look at your training, they look at your ability to, your fire prevention, they look at a lot of the equipment you carry, and so one of the things, and having this new firehouse, I can't speak enough about this new firehouse, is the ability to train, and so, we have the ability to get to a class 2 or a class 1 fire department, which will reduce your insurance rates. But we just need the staffing to put that training, in place, and to make sure that we keep accurate records of it. And some of the other things that we do is, you get points for doing a pre-incident plan. So we'll basically go to Milton Hospital and say, this is where the closest hydrant is, this is where the standpipes are, this is how this system works, this is all the hazards, like the oxygen, this is all the, the sharps, this is all your infectious, this is the morgue, this is, where they clean all the equipment. If you sit there and you create a pre-incident plan and have it in there, you get kind of points for that. So, just having that staff, and, Lieutenant Italiano in fire prevention, he's got a lot of the information, but just to put it from where he has it into a document that can go online and be useful for the fire department is one of the things that we're missing. The fire department, the new firehouse, with the old firehouse, it limited us a lot. It limited us in training, it limited us with our infrastructure, it limited us with our safety, it limited us with a lot of things. This new fire headquarters is actually a game changer. We just need the people to get in there to use that space and use the spaces that we have. And then the other part of it, it's going to keep our firefighters safe. So we have the ability to better ourselves, but we just need the staffing, and we need the IT, and we need the infrastructure we have the infrastructure. We just need just to cross that hurdle and just to get us where we need to be.
Yeah, I visualize you guys rolling up on a scene, everything's on a tablet, pulling up the blueprints when you're there on the fly. I mean, that's best case, but I know it seems to, does it align to where you're looking to leverage AI for on-site response? Is that, can you tell us a little bit more about that? I saw a little note that you're looking to leverage AI to increase sort of public safety across the town. Is that?
So there's a couple different things. So I know, one of the things that we went to a new record management system a few years ago with the police. And we've been trying to get the software. So we had to get the software right to, how we could keep our records and keep it, locally, statewide, and nationally. And, and then we got that down, and then we worked with fire prevention. So now fire prevention was the second step, because again, I'm just one person. So to try and take all that software and input all that software and go to that next step, with Lieutenant Mattaliano and fire prevention, now we're right where we need to be with keeping our records, all of our incidents, and we're right where we need to be with our fire prevention. And the next step, there's a couple of next steps. One would be to put tablets in all the engines, so we can have all that stuff at our fingertips, and just having the person to do that, and to make sure that and we're working with PD. They have somebody that is in charge of theirs, and we're working with PD. So we are going to that. So that is the next step. But there's a software, and it's really not AI. It's called Craig 1300. It's a community risk reduction software. And what it does is it takes a lot of information. It takes a lot of information from the census. It takes a lot of information from, one of the things that they talk about is the, when I did the training on it, floodplains, and they'll take all that map, and it's about 20 different pieces of information, and it downloads everything into it. So we could use it. It'll map everything. It'll tell us where our car accidents, and we kind of all know where our car accidents are happening, right? But it'll tell us where our car accidents, it'll tell us where our brush fires are, it'll tell us where we're getting a lot of our medicals, it'll tell us where, and one of the things that I saw over the summertime is when Tennessee and North Carolina had those epic floods. Yeah. And one of the things that they said was that they didn't realize that they had a community downriver that was predominantly Spanish speaking. And when they put out their emergency alerts, they put everything out in English. So that little area was wiped out, and they had a few fatalities out of that. This new software will tell us where our Spanish-speaking people are, or, because it takes all the information from the census. And so when you look at community risk reduction, we can say, okay, if we're having a fire problem in here, well, maybe we need to start putting it out in a different language in this neighborhood, or, it just helps us identify it. So that's one of the things that would be lost. I would find the money for that. And the Board of Health could use it, and DPW could use it, and the police could use it, and you would have the LEPC, we would use it there, to really get a good idea of where our hazards are and how we can make the community safer.
Thank you.
Jay online, and then back to Macy.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for your service to town. I've got two questions. The first one is, if I look at the level service budget for the whole town, last year to this year, the biggest increase, no surprise, is schools. Second biggest increase, no surprise, is health insurance. The third biggest increase, at first glance, appears to be the fire department. Is that largely or entirely due to the union contract, or can you speak to, it looks like it's about $1 million of increase, with most of that being salary and overtime?
Yes, it's predominantly most of it is due to the union contract and raises and contractual, all the contractual stuff that goes with that union increase. They didn't have a contract for 3 years. They went to arbitration. So when you look at 3 years worth of raises, 3 years of everything, all bunched up into one, that's pretty much what that whole thing is. There is a little bit slight increase in overtime, and you'll see the overtime budget there. But actually that was a misprint. So we actually, like 100,000 of that is towards training, to add towards the training. So what we're trying to do, again, we talked about how we've been level serviced and how our overtime budget really hasn't kept up with the department. So you need to, with that pay increase, well, if they get a 10% raise and you don't increase the overtime budget, so becomes a 10% reduction in overtime. So you have to make sure that matches up the other way. And the same with training. And then again, we talked about the amount of training that we have coming forward. There's just so much training and there's so much. The one thing about the fire service is that we're an all hazards organization. We deal with everything. There isn't anything that we don't do. So to make sure, and everyone loves to tell me that I can't go through a conversation while saying that I was in the Coast Guard, but Coast Guard, its motto is Semper Paratus, which is always ready, and that's my motto, is the fire department should be ready for anything that they have, right? They should be able to master some of the basic things and make sure that we always kind of train, and so that's, the increases of because of the contract. I hope I answered your question, Mr. Fundling.
You did. Thank you very much. I just felt I had to ask because it is noticeable in the year over year. My second question is, and you pointed out that you were including the electric bills, which I appreciate that. Full disclosure, I'm an Eversource employee.
That says Coast Guard.
It looks like the old headquarters had about 1,000, an electric bill of about 1,000 or less per month. And the new headquarters has an electric bill of about 5,000. Am I reading that correctly?
I would have to double check that.
That's what I read.
Yeah, it is.
Let me show you.
Headquarters is-
And these are for summer months. My next question is going to be about, does it have electric or gas heating? But that wouldn't really matter. in
It does have gas
July and
boilers,
August.
but it does have
That's
the,
gas heating, I thought.
it has gas boilers, but it does have the mini splits in all of the rooms. So it's electric wise.
Okay. So both, okay.
Yeah, and it's just,
And-
that is probably correct. That is correct if, we're reading it. Much bigger building to cool, much bigger building to heat. It's just something that, yeah, it's a challenge. And I think I know what your next question would be. And we're looking into, I've had some conversations about putting solar panels. And we're working with a vendor for the town, and they put everything together, and I haven't heard from them in a couple of months. I'll have to look into reaching out to them again to see where we stand. If that was your next question, Mr. Fundling, I apologize.
That wasn't going to be my next question. I don't think I would have much of a next question, except that, it's good to know if that's what it is, that we need a budget around it. And I guess also, sometimes there's energy management. A building that large is going to be built based on the peak demand, the largest energy use of 1 hour over the course of the entire month, probably. So, you might be able to work with facilities to see if there's something that can be done there, but that's not something we're going to settle here tonight. So,
And we are.
I'm
I
done.
actually just sent an email out to several key components. There's one of the problems that some of the switches keep going to cool all winter long. That happened. So with the building management system, we're trying to really narrow that down. So we actually reached out to the building facilities, to it's part of the warranty work. We're still on that to make sure that it's operating properly. So we are working on fixing that.
okay, thank you very much.
Macy, back to you.
Actually, Brian had his hand raised too.
You want me to-
Brian,
I've been talking a lot, so,
Brian, then Judy.
and then I'll go last.
I have a bunch of questions. So the contract is completed now, it's done?
Yes, yep.
And there was a retro pay on
It was retro pay, yep,
Is the annual, you said there was 3 years without increases?
yes.
So the increase this year was 10% to make?
It was anywhere from like 11 to 13 and a half, 14. I can't remember what exactly it
Do you know what
was.
it is for future years?
So they're without a contract going July
Again,
1st.
so-
Yep.
Oh, they're without a contract,
So starting July 1st, they'll be without a contract again.
okay.
So I had a conversation with the town administrator today, and they started the preliminary talks to go into contract negotiations.
Okay, gotcha. on the electrical, did they put in, like, in the new building, did they put it like LED lights, motion detectors?
Yep,
So everything shuts off?
everything shuts off, yes.
It might be worth it to get the electrical company in just to see why the bills are so high. Still seems pretty high. I know it's a bigger building, but.
Yes, yeah, and I think, I believe once we figure out, so it took a while to get the lights figured out, which the lights aren't that big of a deal with the LED.
Right.
And then, you know, the heating and cooling, that's our problem, you know. I walked into my office today and my heat says that it's set at 70, but it's on cool and it's 68 degrees. So it just, every once in a while, I don't know if it was the power outage or whatever, you know, so you go into the office, it's cold when it's cold out, and then sometimes when it's hot out. So it's just something that we need to figure out, and we're working with the you know, our OPM and the companies that did it to fix it.
Okay.
So,
On the personnel, the salaries, are you adding 2 people, or is that just 2 people that have left that you need to?
we are shy 2 people right now.
Okay,
So we're complemented at 56.
yeah,
So we have, you know, 3 groups of 14, 1 group of 13, fire prevention, which makes it 56, and then I'm 57.
okay. So it's not additional?
No, it's, those are 2 openings.
Okay. Sorry, you talked about the ladder truck?
Yes.
So I'm gonna go back to that. You said, can it handle 4 and 5 stories?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the ladder truck we're getting it is a 95-foot bucket. 90, you know, our current one is a 100-footer, but I figured losing the 5 feet also saved us 4 feet, so 5 feet in length, which can still reach the 6th
Yeah.
floor. So 5 feet in length, but we also lost 4 feet in length of the truck itself. So maneuvering around town is a little bit easier. I figured with one person, it's a safer platform, and then it's just easier to maneuver, minus 4 feet in the overall length of the truck itself, not just the ladder. So it can still reach the 6th floor of the Unquity House. It'll still reach the top of the hospital. It'll still reach the 5th floor of any place that we have, so.
How long does like the engines and the ladder truck last? How long do they usually last for you?
So Chief Grant put in a program where, so, you know, we have 1 ladder truck and we had 4 engines. 3 engines are in service, and then the 4th one is the backup in case anything happens. So his idea was to, every 5 years, replace something. So a truck would stay in service for 15 years and then spend 5 years as a backup. Well, when COVID happened, I tried ordering the ladder truck because it was, and I will, you know, I get a little off, when Marina is here, Charlie Colligan down at the maintenance, the mechanic, the town mechanic, he's done a phenomenal job with our pieces. He really has. He's just, him and his crew have done, you know, yeoman's work. When I became chief and that truck was there, and the ladder truck, it needed a lot of work, and Charlie and his crew really got it going, and it's, knock on wood, like, it's running well, and it's in service. Same with our engine. So the idea was to replace one. So when I went to purchase an engine, then they're saying it's 3 years. So it's a 3-year wait. So now, you know, our frontline engine 1, it's a 2005. The ladder truck that's in service right now is a 2006. So you're talking, those are, you know, 20 to 19 years old, and they're still in service to the town. And actually, our spare engine right now is a 99. That's actually in service right now because engine 1 needs a new motor. So that's out getting a new motor right now. And when it gets back, we'll be able to keep those. And you know, to Charlie Colligan, Mr. Colligan, you know, he's done a great job. And you know, I listen to him a lot, and he loves that 99 because it's before everything started getting computerized. So he likes that. So he's like, we're going to keep that,
never
you
sell
know.
it.
Yeah. So one of the things that his challenge, and one of the challenge for me in working with Marina and you know, the firefighters is like, if something needs an oil change, or if something needs something done, or something, you know, they do an amazing job. They take it and they, you know, our firefighters may have to stay down there for an hour, and Charlie will change the oil and really not take it out of service hard right now because it may be needed in 5 minutes. So typically, you know, a lot of departments will go 10 years per truck. You know, we're 15 to 20 years right now. And again, that's been the challenge since I've been chief is COVID. Everything is, you know, 36, 48 months in the prices. You know, the the ladder truck that we purchased back in '22, 1.6 million. To buy a new ladder truck now is like 2.2 to 2.5 million. And that's just in a short 3 years. So it's just, they're getting more expensive and it's just taking longer to get. And I don't understand it, but it's a challenge.
How many miles do they have on them when you get rid of them?
Oh, it's engine hours, and I wouldn't even
Oh.
have an idea of how many engine hours are on those. A lot, and they're ridden hard, right? You're responding, so it's not like you get an opportunity to miss a pothole or
Warm it up.
Warm it up, yeah. So it's a challenge to keep those in service, and but they're ridden hard because through snow, through ice, through you arrive at a car accident and there's just debris everywhere, and you drive right over all of that stuff, and they get damaged. You drive out in these winter storms and the branches are hanging low. Those trucks are tall and they get some damage that way. So and again, the central maintenance facility, that crew has done an amazing job to keep our trucks in working order. So
Curious.
they need a rest. But and one of the things that you look at is when the new engine comes in. So I was told the ladder should be sometime next year this time. So next spring the new ladder truck, and then the engine will be probably about midsummer of '26.
They're already on order.
They're already on order. Yeah, and then I'm ordering another one next fiscal year. This coming July 1st. As long as town meeting approves it, it will have 3 years. It's a 36-month wait just to be able to. And the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to keep 2 spares. You have to keep 2 spares. It's just, there's just not enough time. Again, like, if you need a simple oil change or preventative maintenance, you can't take anything out of service for that long because it may have to go into service real quick. So, keeping 2 spares will allow, them to keep an engine for a couple of days and really go through it hard and do the maintenance that it needs. And then, swap it out, and then another one can come in and do the maintenance that it needs at that point too. So, hope I answered your question.
Yeah, except for the miles, but that's okay.
Yeah, I wish it's engine hours, and I wouldn't even have an idea
Yeah.
of how many miles, how many hours are on it. I could text the guys and
Curious.
have
I was
them
in the
look.
trucking industry, so I'm interested.
I could text them and have them go look for you if you want.
That's all right.
Thank you, Brian. Judy, then Andrew. Judy's online.
Thank you. I would like to go back to the union contracts, if I could.
Yes.
You mentioned somewhere between 10 and 13% for the entire 3 years. Most contracts that I'm familiar with that go on a 3-year basis, they'll be set up like the first year 3%, second year 2.5%, and the third year, I don't know, 4%. Let's just use those numbers. And then interspersed, there's also COLA raises of a certain percentage. So when you said 10 to 13, you were adding up like those incremental increases that happen every year in a 3-year contract?
Yes, I think I was adding up the whole contract itself, where it was maybe a 3, a 2, and a 3, and then maybe a couple of percentage like in EMT, their EMT stipend. There was a raise in that. So it depends on, some people are not EMTs. We have 7 members that are not EMTs right now, but all new members are required to be EMTs. So when you look at that, so that's why I think and then, different grades, so if there was, if you're on for 25 years, there's a 25-year step, and I can't remember exactly. I wish I had the copy of the contract with me to tell you exactly how the contract went, but it was different steps, got different things. So I just did an overall of, 10 to 13%. I can't remember. Somebody may get a 10% and somebody may get a 13% is kind of where we are. If that makes sense.
No, I'm pretty familiar with contract negotiations, actually. So this question, staying on contracts, how is it that it takes you so long to get a contract? You're
that-
you're running you're you're running up to a deadline, and then you're starting a new contract that doesn't seem to get negotiated in a timely manner. Can you speak to that?
I guess the biggest thing, and it's hard for me to speak on this because, you know, the town has what it can offer, and the unions ask for what they believe, and going back and forth between the two. You know, they couldn't come together as an agreement, so it went to JLMC, so that's what took so long. They were awarded the contract, I believe, last June. So it's not like it just happened and now they're without. So it was about 2.5 years, you know, just about in that time frame. So, you know, I can't really speak for the union, and I can't really speak for the, you know, the town administrator, but I know it's one of those things that there was no lack of trying, I'll say that, you know? It's just one of the things that is hard to explain.
So who does, if I could stay on this, who does your contract negotiations? Is that a local person? Someone from your union?
So we have the local 1116, they have their e-board, they do the contract negotiations. And then you also have the town administrator. And
As the
myself.
company? Yeah.
You know, we do the contract negotiations for the town. And the other part about it too is there were a few different town administrators in that time frame. So that kind of slowed things down a little bit.
I think in the last 3 years, we've only had, I think Mr. Milano came on 2 years ago,
Yep.
maybe a little bit more. 'cause he
That
came in-
contract negotiation started with Mr. Dennehy, and then it went through Ms. Fagan during her interim,
Okay.
and then finished with Mr. Milano.
Okay. Most unions that I know of and worked for, try and avoid arbitration at all costs. It's better to, they find from experience, that it's better to negotiate on your own rather than have a third party make the decisions for you. How often do you go into arbitration? Do you know?
I believe that would have been the first time in my career. I can't be sure if that was the first time that we went into arbitration. I think it was the first time. I think we've gone down that path before a couple of times, but it never got to the arbitrator's award. But I can't be sure on that. I don't want to speak out of school on that.
Yeah, you settled pre-arbitration,
Yes.
so,
Yep.
yeah, before that third party actually made that decision, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy. Andrew?
Chief, good seeing you again.
Good seeing you again.
I have a couple of different questions. One, starting with the engines. You mentioned that typically you see some departments keep their engines 10 years.
Yep.
And we are keeping them roughly 15 to 20 years. So if you're talking about 50 to 100% longer, has anybody looked at the cost of maintaining them those longer and whether the trade-offs make sense?
I have not. I don't believe that we have. That's something that I know that working with Charlie down at Central Maintenance, I believe that's something that we started talking about that, where you can track it better. You know, and again, that's software and having the ability to track and see how much each one costs.
Is your sense that maintenance costs are steady or hockey sticking as you get older?
It all depends, you know. Engine one, I rode that engine for 10 years and never gave us a problem. And just recently it started leaking oil, and, you know, you're talking 20 years. And you know, it needed a new motor. It's just, it's what happens, you know. So I think cost effective, I think that engine was a good engine, one of the ones that before we had our old engine one. It seemed like it was broken on a regular basis. So it's hard to say. It comes down to each engine, and talking to fire chiefs, fire chiefs will say, well, I don't like this brand, I like this brand, and I like this brand, and it was like we were doing there's about 4 different companies, and I'm going from this company to this company because that company doesn't do well, and it's just everybody was changing to a different one, and the company that we have, E1, is out of Florida. All of our engines are the exact same. And we have all the parts, and the mechanic's really comfortable with it, so we stuck with that. And, I think he has a pretty good grasp, so it's something that we can. I know he wanted to start looking at that and see where we are and, get a good cost effect, see what the costs are on maintaining those.
And sticking on the topic of engines, you had mentioned the ages of some of them. Ideally, you would stagger the life cycle of these so that you're not taking on one-time costs of huge lumps. Are you happy with the current sort of staggering of engines across the town?
I think it makes sense, and I know that it's hard when you look at $1 million a piece now. I think $1 million every 5 years versus $2 million every 10, and I think. The other thing, it staggers it, right? It gives us a couple of years to really figure out where we are and plan for that. So I think if we went, buying all 4 engines at the same time.
No, got it. Yep.
Yeah, I think all 4 engines would start to fall apart at the same time, and then you'd be, running the risk of taking everything out of service at the same time. So I like this plan. I think Chief Grant did a great job coming up with this plan. The only thing that happened was COVID got in the way and then really delayed, And I hate to blame everything on COVID.
No, I get it. And really, the question I'm asking is, looking across all the engines in town, are you happy with how they're currently staggered, or do you have concerns that you're looking at lumps at different points in time?
No, I'm pretty happy with this new engine coming in, and the new ladder will give us a really big relief. And then, if we do get the engine, and I can purchase it next year, we'll have another one coming in 3 years. So then that'll give us a little bit of relief, knowing that that's coming further down the path.
And then focusing back on the budget, and I apologize if you answered this question before I got here, but looking at things like IT or other shared resources, are there things that are not fully in the budget that exist in some of the part of the town budget that we should be aware of? Or, I mean, IT, I'm assuming some of the cost burden is shared by IT here, but are there other items that are sort of hidden or buried in yours, or same with other services?
Yeah, I think so. I think I kind of answered this a little bit. The IT is huge. We finally have a station that can handle the infrastructure and can handle the computers, and allows us to move forward. And there's a couple of different softwares that we were looking to purchase, and that would be some of those things would be the ones that would be cut. The IT department here does a great job supporting the fire department. It's just that's exactly what they do, is they support. What do you need to make this software run? So working with him on putting the iPads or the tablets in the engines, we're currently working on that now. And, we're having those conversations on a regular basis, what will work, what won't work, and, working with the vendor to make sure that, whether it's a Apple product or, Microsoft or Toughbook or whatever it is that we're going to go with, make sure that it can support the software. So working with him is great. But the other part of it, when I first started putting IT stuff into the budget, people were like, well, that's the IT's job. Well, we're actually the input. We actually do the work. And so we talked about the assistant chief and, a training officer and, having somebody that's on the day staff to manage that software. And, as an IT, garbage in, garbage out, like if you don't put enough or utilize that IT as far as it goes, it's really not worth it. So you need to make sure, so there is some IT stuff, and that would make our job easier and better and, safer.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the question I'm asking is, obviously you don't pay IT. You don't pay the town for their services, or do you? And so, are there things that are not accounted for that are in your budget or need to be in budget? I mean, I have all kinds of questions around procurement, for example, and how does that happen? Is it all your department that does it, or is it only over a certain dollar amount? Does Rob Mallet do it? And so I'm trying to get my arms around what is everything contained in your budget, or are there things that are shared outside of it other than IT's time?
So there are some things. And if I'm correct in your question, so like our record management system, we share with PD.
Okay.
Mr. Mallet has supported that all along, but it comes out of the police budget. So he has the whole budget for our record management system. The other softwares that we went to a time and attendance software. I purchased that. That comes out of my budget. The Craig 1300 that I talked about earlier, that's a community risk reduction, that would come out of my budget. There's another one that will help us with write our standards and codes and everything else. That would come out of my budget. So the IT for my department would come out of our budget. So.
Got it. And the reason, just to explain why I asked that question, is I think there could be some centralization and cost savings, and if different people or different departments are using different time and attendance software, for example.
Right.
It just complicates things, and but that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Macy, before, I just have a couple.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, if I could, just a couple of clarifying questions about some things you stated earlier, just in terms of if the override doesn't pass. So you said there'd be 2 full-time firefighter positions that would be stricken?
Yes.
And those, I assume, to fill in for those already being down, already being understaffed, that would be backfilled by your overtime?
Yes.
Which would then create a double.
Yes.
You also indicated there would be a $20,000 reduction in your tech budget?
Yes.
And that would reflect some of the things that Andrew was talking about?
Yes.
Okay. There'd be a $40K reduction in new equipment purchases?
Yep.
And I assume, could you illustrate what maybe some of that equipment you'd be seeking to purchase this fiscal year? Like if you could, I don't know if it's like hoses or
Yes,
that type of stuff?
All of that stuff, anything that we look at, there's, so we have our meters, our gas meters, our 4 gas meters, for hazardous materials, carbon monoxide, flammable gas, O2, oxygen, we have those meters, and the device that charges it and tests it, it has to be recalibrated on a monthly basis. That device broke, and I had the vendor in the other day, and he was able to glue a piece back together, and he said, if this glue doesn't stick, then you're going to need a new one. And I know that was somewhere around like $3,000, and stuff like that. Nothing that we have is firefighter proof, so things break. So that's a lot of that equipment.
So like the day-to-day?
Day-to-day stuff, like a backboard, a hose, a nozzle, portable radios, the SCBAs that we wear on our backs. If something breaks and we need a new one, we just went through, obviously a busy wildland season, so, we had to get new forestry hose, we have to, new nozzles, and you need to make sure that, it all breaks. It's just, it's a tough profession, and things break.
Oh,
So.
I mean, I can visualize all this stuff in my head. So, can you just answer historically? Do you usually go up against that every year, or sometimes it's a little bit less? Do you give back, or are you basically
Sometimes
on or
it's
about that number every year?
sometimes we're usually on or about it.
Okay.
Sometimes we do have a little extra money, and then you can do like a larger purchase.
Sure.
A few years ago, we were able to replace our 1964 boat with a new rigid hull inflatable. A few years ago, we had about $25,000 left at the end of the year, so we were able to, purchase something like that. So now, surprisingly, that gets used.
No.
The Neponset River, like that's been a challenge, and then obviously the lakes, and then something like the ice rescue sled that we have, that was purchased a couple of years ago, that was a couple $1,000s, you know. At the end of the year, I try and be very, very, you know, I think about what we need and can we wait, you know, to see where it is, and then at the end of the year, in case we have those large items that we can purchase, or if something breaks, you know. So I try not to spend early in the year and be very judicious in what I spend. And then, you know, obviously if it's something, a thermal imaging camera, where it's something that's gonna be truly life safety, then yeah, I'll go out and buy it right at the time, but, you know.
Sure. So that encapsulates about like $250,000 cut. Is that part, those are all part and parcel of the,
Yes.
including the positions? And that's kind of what the discussion was in terms of a non-override situation for the department. Another bigger question, other than the reductions in staff and the budgeting, was there ever a discussion about closing Atherton Street or anything like that? Was that ever discussed?
No, I closing a fire, no.
Okay, I'm just
I
asking,
just-
'cause in the past, that has been something that's come up.
Yeah,
It's just a concern of mine.
it happened in the 90s, and I think we've proven, you know, I don't know if I have the exact numbers. Yeah, these numbers, Engine 1 is our busiest engine, which is out of headquarters. And then Engine 4 on Atherton Street is our second busiest. And you have a large, I guess what you would say, target. You know what I mean? Like something that we would really take a look at. You have Fuller Village. You have 1200 Brush Hill Road, which is an elderly complex or a nursing home. You have Curry College. You have a large possibility of loss of life up there. You know what I mean? The college kids, God knows what they get into. They've been very, very good this year. And then, yeah, you have 30 Curtis Road. You have a lot of big, high target areas that we would need the protection. And so I think it would be very, very difficult to close any of our stations. You know, like I said, we do 4,500 runs. And almost 10,000 responses. So when I say 4,500 runs, that's 4,500 incidents that gets one number. But say that one number has 2 engines and a ladder and a deputy chief responding, so that's a 4-unit responses on that one run. So yeah, we're almost 10,000 runs. So I think of closing any kind of engine would be a severe, severe blow to the protection of the life safety of this town.
I just wanted to, didn't know if that was...
No, right now, no.
Okay, that's good, very good. Okay, Brian?
I wasn't sure I understood that. So you said that you do 4,500 runs in a year?
Yep.
And you send out 2 trucks?
Not on everyone.
Oh.
So, fire or a fire alarm, we'll send 2 engines, a ladder, and the deputy chief. The deputy chief.
But if it's medical, you just send one? Okay.
Yep.
All right, interesting.
Macy?
Quick question. Chief Haddon, have you ever had a situation where you had to call upon another town to assist because of you didn't have enough firefighters or the appropriate equipment?
Yeah, I mean, we do, yes. There's plenty of times that we would call, you know, and I think our mutual aid was someplace around 30, you know, where we gave mutual aid or it was given back to us. Obviously, some of the bigger ones, the fires, the brush fires in the Blue Hills, they become quickly staff intensive or manpower intensive, where you need the help. Again, you know, we can handle a 1 or 2 bedroom fire, so that's like what we would call a working fire. Anything bigger than that, we're going to call a second alarm. And that will bring Canton and Randolph and Quincy into the fire, and would bring Boston to cover the stations, to cover the rest of the town. And then you look at some of the things. I know that we had a chlorine leak at Fuller Village this year, and we had to call a state hazmat team in to you know, our firefighters did a great job, got everybody to safety, and then closed it off. And we called the state hazmat team, and they have the equipment and the training to go in and make entry into that space to make it safe. And so there are few incidents like that we would call for extra help. but it's usually the bigger incidents, you know. I know that, you know, one of the nights, it was actually during the Super Bowl. Super Bowl has always been a really busy night for us. Like when I first started, we caught a couple of fires in town and out of town. When I started, I didn't catch all of them, but I was working, whatever. And so I know I just turned on the radio, and I know at the same time we had Engine 1 and Engine 2 and Ladder 1 working a motor vehicle accident with the Jaws, where they'd used the Jaws of Life to cut somebody out in East Milton. And at the same time, Engine 4 and Canton Engine were using the Jaws of Life on Blue Hill Avenue. It's just one of those times where it happens. You know what I mean? You can never predict when that's going to happen, but it does happen. So some of the bigger incidents, yeah, we do call mutual aid. And so I'd say probably, you know, by the amount of times that we go out and the amount of times that we come back, probably 30 to 40. And again, the brush fires are the ones that, I mean, that November fire that I'm sure everybody remembers, I think we had 30 different towns or entities working at that brush fire at the height of it. So.
Just a quick question on
And
mutual
then,
aid.
and then Judy online.
Is there a cost to mutual aid?
No. Nope.
Hey, Judy.
Thank you. I think I may have confused what you were saying, so if I could get a clarification. That you use overtime for training hours? If so, would that be because during a normal shift, everyone has to be alert and ready to jump in that truck and go? So you have to do training off shift, thereby engaging overtime?
Yes, that happens. It should happen more. It doesn't happen enough. There are definitely some trainings that you cannot do while working. You know, if it's an 8-hour class, we really can't do it because the guys keep on getting called out. So we would need to take them out of service for the day, and then, you know, or give them overtime, or a day that they're not in the firehouse. And, you know, there are some classes that coming up that we need to do that. And then there are some classes that when somebody becomes an officer, we should send them to fire officer training. You know, that's a 5-day class that they would have to do. You know, we have one hazardous material technician in town, and, you know, we need a few more trained to that level. So that training would have to happen out of town, so they would be paid overtime to do that.
So on a 5-day training course, that's time and a half for the 40 hours?
It would be, depends on the days. If they're scheduled to be in the firehouse, they would be given the day off, and they would attend the training, and that would be straight time. And then any other time, the rest of the week, they would be on overtime. And then usually the backfill would be overtime.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can I, just, so I wish, Jay, can you hear, you have that cool little chart all the time. What's your percentage of overtime pay, do you think?
So I know that one of the standards that most fire chiefs that I talk to, I belong to a couple of different organizations, and one is Metro Fire, is everything inside of 128. And they like to keep the standard at about 10% of your overall budget would be overtime. And we have been just under that or just right around that, but we spend over that. And it all depends on, you know, who's retired and who's injured and who's sick. That differs from year to year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Judy. Lori.
I'm very interested in your stats.
My
The
stats.
stats, the 4,500 trips, and
Yes.
whether it's 1, 2, however many,
Sure.
you know, trucks go out.
Yep.
And what types of calls they go on.
Sure. Yeah. So you know.
And do you, well, and I saw your little chart, so do you post those online?
I really don't, and it's something that I need to get better at working with the software. It doesn't give me exactly what I want, and I'm working with the vendor to try and give me that. Unfortunately, the vendor that we have, he's very police-centric. So when I ask fire questions, it throws him off. So then I have to find his fire guy. Yeah, so it's one of those things. So yeah, we did 4,432 incidents last year, 2,948 medical calls. So those are one engine. That would be, just one engine, the closest appropriate engine. We had, let's see if my eyes are correct. I got my eyes checked today, and they said I was good, but they put all those drops in it, so. So I think we had basically
How many of those were medical?
2,948. We had 46 what we call either brush fires or outside fires, and a few of them got to several acres. So a few of them were a little bit on the larger side. We had 18 what we call structure fires last year. Brush fires could, it could be one engine. It could be somebody's, off the side of the road, say off the side of Blue Hill Parkway, and it takes 2 minutes. It's 10 by 10 area. It could be a brush fire. Or it could be 50 acres. So it all depends on the size of the brush fire and the access. Yes. Structure fires, we had 18. And so when you look at that, that's usually 2 engines and a ladder and the deputy chief, so that would be 4 responses on that. And then if it is a structure fire, we'd probably go to that working fire assignment, and that would bring our 3rd engine to the fire, and then it would require mutual aid to come in.
Just gonna ask that, when do you have to call a mutual aid?
And that's when, yeah, and it's just, again, it all depends on the size of the fire and and whether the fire can be put out real quickly, and, the last couple, I will say, and I use this terminology, this story, right after the firehouse was built, one of the things is a training tower in it, and we can use it for real lifelike simulations, and we can't put a fire in it. Believe me, we'd love to build a fire in there, and but it's a concrete stairwell that goes up 4 stories, and on the 2nd floor, there's a room there, and it's just a concrete room with a door and a window and everything else, and so we did every week we do a training, and that's what they trained for the week. So all 4 groups and all 3 engine companies and the ladder company had to pretend that room was on fire. And they geared up, there's a hydrant out back, they took the hydrant, they dressed the hydrant, they got a hose line, they went up to the 2nd floor, full gear, dragged the line in, and then sprayed water out the window. And, the fire service has a saying, the fire goes as the first line goes. So if the first line can get in there quickly and efficiently and get water on that fire real quick, then that fire usually stays manageable in size. So we did that training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday was an off day for training that day. But that Friday night, they had the Steel and Rye fire. And the Steel and Rye fire, they did an amazing job. If you've been in Steel and Rye, you know how big that is. Well, the first 2 company, when they got there, they had smoke right to the floor, and trying to find the seat of the fire, using a thermal imager, using everything that they're taught to try and find the seat of the fire. They found that seat of the fire pretty quickly, and they found it in the kitchen area, and they were able to extinguish the fire pretty quickly. And so when you look at, say, and I'm not sure what the ultimate loss was, it was a couple $100,000 loss, but I know that they were shut for a month and their employees, so you're talking in the millions of dollars probably by the time that was opened. So you look at, a couple $1 million loss, but when you look at the whole building itself, right? You look at the whole building, you still have the businesses downstairs, the businesses that go up along the side. There's a significant save for our fire service, for firefighters. They did an amazing job. On Saturday morning, they had a basement fire, a dryer fire, and same exact thing. That training allowed them to, that first line, get in. You probably don't know where Macy's basement door is, so getting into somebody's house and trying to find that basement door and getting down, and God knows what happens, what's in my basement that you've never seen, right? To get down into that, yeah, to get into that basement and putting that fire out and keeping it to a $100,000 loss. You know what I mean? But the training really paid off, and the same thing happened Sunday afternoon. So you had 3 working fires. We called them working fires. Actually, Steel and Rye was a second alarm because of the size of the building. So, but that basement fire was maintained at a working fire because they got in real quick and they were able to knock the fire down. The same thing Sunday afternoon, we had a bedroom fire. and that was kept at a working fire because they were able to get the line in place and put the fire out, knock it down real quick. So it all depends on what it is, you know, steel or rye, just the size of the building. And it actually turned out to be insulation in a freezer. It was outside the freezer, but inside the metal, so that whole insulation thing was it just created a ton of smoke, not a lot of fire, and they were able to unplug it, put it out, cool it down and everything else. But it went to a second alarm because of the size of the building and then how much smoke was there and everything else. The other ones were real active fires that they actually had to put a lot of water on to extinguish. So it really depends on the situation, you know, like who would have thought that going to a trolley call would have ended up being 2 engines and a deputy chief, you know? So you have to take so.
Everything is different.
Yeah, so, you know, most medicals are 1 engine. When you start getting into, when you look at, you know, trying to think of some of the other numbers, alarm activation and investigation, you know, almost 700 of them. You know, and that's everybody with the ADT and the home fire alarms and everything else, and, you know, they work. They do. They call us, and how many times we get there and people are like, I'm just burned dinner or whatever. It's great. We would rather see that than the opposite when we get there and there's smoke or heavy fire or heavy smoke showing. So they actually do a great job. But, you know, when you get the call for the fire alarm, it's 2 engines, a ladder, and a deputy, because if we just say 1 engine and all of a sudden the building is on fire, it's already too late, right? Because, you know, that first line in, if, you know, we only have 750 gallons of water on board. So if we don't get there and that second engine doesn't get there right after them and then take that hydrant and feed into them, and, you know, it becomes a challenge. So that's why, you know, a standard response for a smoke in the building or alarm is 2 engines. We call it a box alarm. So it's 2 engines, a ladder, and the deputy chief responding. Vehicle fires, ever since, and I don't know if you know the name Tony Pickens, but Tony Pickens was a firefighter that was hit by a car a few years ago, back in 2005, I believe it was. And probably about 8, 9 years ago, one of the things, you know, one of our guys was almost hit by a car in a car fire, where we need to spread out, you know, everything else. So we made that a standard response, that it's 2 engines going to a car fire now, right? That becomes our safety, you know? And then whenever 2 engines respond, the deputy chief has to go to that and take command on that. So there are some different calls that are, you know, 1 engine, 2 engines, or the full box assignment. So I hope I can talk, so.
So can you talk about the wildfires in the Blue Hills? Like, did you have the equipment that you needed to deal with that? And how did you, like, there aren't any fire hydrants in the middle of the 50 acres. Like, what do you do?
So that's a really, really good question. So we do have a brush unit, and the brush unit isn't exactly the best unit that we have, and I know the assistant town administrator, Mr. Nick Connors, is working with him to kind of create or come up with a fix on that. So that's in the works. So.
And what's a brush unit mean? Is that?
So it's basically a 4x4 truck. Our truck is an F550, but and it carries 200 gallons and gets us into the woods, into the trails. We also have a UTV, which is smaller, like a little side-by-side little tractor kind of thing, that allows us to, you know, if a fire is like a half mile or mile into the woods, we can throw a couple firefighters on there and get a scout and see where the fire is before we start committing resources. So they're a challenge. They really are a challenge. First off is it's access. Do we have the access to get there? You know, we've had fires at the top of hills that are just impossible to gain access to, where we're stretching, you know, 1,000, 2,000 feet of hose to get to the seat of the fire. Or, you know, the one that we had, you know, it burnt to the ground, to the street. So it all depends on it, and it depends on how quickly. The one in November was, you know, 30-mile-an-hour winds, and it just took off. And, you know, our first 2 engine was there, and they got to the seat of the fire, and they said it was about a quarter acre, half acre, and then 10 minutes later it was at 30 acres. So when, you know, wind driven right uphill. So we have plans for that. We're very good, you know, our deputies and our lieutenants are very good at incident command system. And so they just build it out. It's scalable, you know, it's like, you know, we take command at a single unit medical, they take command, And then a car fire, somebody will take command, or a small building fire will take command. So the command structure is just built out, and as you need resources, they'll call it out and call it in, and everybody knows, you know, it's the running joke with some of my chief friends, you know, when the brush season, they're like, oh, you out of the Blue Hills yet? You getting back into the Blue Hills yet?
Yeah, that's a little scary. It is. After LA.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we have, it's a different kind of environment. You know, the fires that were in LA were totally different kind of brush, different fuels. The fuels here are definitely greener, and, you know, the fires that we have here are ground fire. The fires that they have out in LA can get in the treetops, and, you know, and one of the things that we do have, we don't, you know, it's just different kind of topography and just different fuels that are there. And we do have a lot of help in the area, you know. Like I said, we had 30 units on scene in November within a half hour. So we have plenty of help with mutual aid system.
So you're not really worried about any, like, if something were to happen again?
No, not that I'm worried. Cautiously, you know, just cautious about it. And, you know, I have the faith in the fire department and the men and women there. And I know the faith in the other fire departments that are around us. And, you know, they're always willing to lend a hand. And, you know, the firefighters are really, really good at their job. I think I'm lucky, we're all lucky to have the firefighters that we have there. They're really hardworking, and they know their job. They're really good at it, so.
That's good. Wait, now, this whole thing brought up, there was a committee, the local emergency,
Planning Committee, LEPC?
something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, with like 20 people that were
Yes.
involved, and I was like looking at it today. I don't know what prompted that, but that doesn't seem to be, it seems a little defunct. But there's a meeting Thursday.
There's a meeting Thursday, yes. So, yeah, there was a change in leadership there.
Yeah.
And so the new leadership is coming on board, and yeah, it's just one of those things, when you have so much change, turnover at certain positions, then it's a little bit challenging. The LEPC is a very good thing, and it's some of the things that I'm going to talk about the brush fires and making sure that we're all on the same page in case something like that does happen again. And, you know, it really, the departments work well together. You know, the PD has been great. You know, they do the dispatching, and we can work with them, you know, with the planning stuff. So, and we deal with Norfolk County Control, who's a countywide, and we work with them. So, yeah.
So there'll be a plan.
So there is
Is there a plan today, or are we just get a plan?
like an evacuation plan?
Well, just
or-
any natural disaster. I mean, we had those.
So there are
brush
some
fires.
plans. There is a Blue Hill plan, but that just needs to be updated. That's a couple of years old, and obviously things change, and most cities and towns now have that brush unit. Before, they didn't have it. Metro Fire, we just created our own task force for brush units. So we do have task forces in Metro Fire. We have Norfolk County, Plymouth County. So there's plenty of people that didn't have those capabilities. Now we do have them. So working well with the district warden. So we'll be updating the plan.
Excellent.
Sure.
All right, great. Thank you. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Andrew, do you have a?
Yeah, going back to the statistics, you said of the 4,400 some odd calls last year, like 67% roughly, 2/3 were medical.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, why you said engines to medical events? I mean, if you assume they're pretty expensive to run, to send, relatively speaking, why send?
That is the age-old question: is why does a fire truck go on a medical call? Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a couple of different. It's multifaceted, right? So when you look at it, so we don't really know the true nature of the medical until we show up there. Someone could say they're not feeling well, and it turns out to be a heart attack. Mm-hmm. So we do have a third-party ambulance that has the contract for the town. Mm-hmm. So when I say our firefighters, our first responders, they usually arrive on scene first. One thing that they did back in 1899 and 1878 and 1940-something, they placed the firehouses pretty well, throughout the town. So we do have our response times. We do have that NFPA sets response times that, you know, you have a minute to triage the call, you have a minute to dispatch the call, and you have 4 to 6 minutes to arrive on scene. So our firehouses are pretty well spaced out throughout the town to keep us with that 4 to 6 minute response time. So we're always, you know, between us and PD, we're usually the first on scene. We have, again, 51 out of 56 EMTs. So we're trained, we have all the equipment. We're not paramedics, we do have a couple paramedics, but we're trained to the EMT level. And so getting there quick does a couple things. So if it is truly a life-saving and if it's a savable life, then we're there to do CPR immediately. And then the other part of it is, you know, render care, you know, broken arm, broken leg, whatever it is, we can start those interventions relatively quickly to relieve the pain or whatever. And then another part is that, you know, there's only 2 medics showing up on an ambulance. So, you know, all the equipment that you carry in, now to carry somebody out. And there was a study, and well, not so much a study, but I seen it online, and it's something I've always meant to save, but it goes through the same medical with 2 people on an ambulance and then 2 people with a third person coming, and it just, you know, then the 2 people on the ambulance and 3 people on an engine company. And the amount of time on scene, it went from like 37 minutes down to like 12 minutes. If you have, you know, when you have 3 firefighters on scene, you know, and you start doing CPR, we have the equipment, we can put the Lucas on. We have the Lucas machine, which does the compressions for you. We can start getting air into the lungs and you know, into the bloodstream. So we can do that. We can breathe for people. So those seconds are life-saving and so critical at that, right? And then when you're trying to get the person out, well, now you have all that equipment to carry out, and you still have that patient that you have to carry out. And so it's just...
Apologize, and I don't doubt that, and I think firefighters should go everywhere.
Right.
But I guess the question I'm asking is, an engine, I'm not saying why are you sending firefighters.
Why are we sending an engine?
Engine is a really expensive vehicle and big vehicle and slower vehicle. Why wouldn't you send it in a more cost-efficient or faster vehicle?
So one of the things is firefighters are tied to that engine. So if we took a chase car or a pickup truck there, right, and we get a call for a fire, then we don't have our equipment. And, you know, and the greatest thing about, you know, firefighters is that we're only as good as our equipment. You know, none of us can breathe smoke. It's the equipment that allows us to go into that building. Nobody can get anybody out of a car. It's the equipment that helps us cut people out of a car. So the engine is our toolbox. Everything that we have to save somebody's life or intervene somehow is all tied to that engine or that ladder. It's a giant toolbox and gives us everything that we have. I mean, on that is we have our ice and water rescue suits, we have our JAWS, we have our cribbing, we have our SCBAs, we have our medical equipment. We have everything that we need to handle 99.9% of the calls that we go to. So anywhere we go with the engine, and, you know, anywhere you go together as a team. So that's why we do that. I hope I answered you.
No, I get it.
Okay.
Sure, Brian.
Sorry, I have a couple more questions.
Sure, no.
Do you still get a lot of false alarms at Curry, or is that?
Those have dwindled down.
Okay.
They're not as bad as they used to be when I first started. You were going up there 4 or 5 times a night. Now you probably go up there once or twice a weekend. And, you know, it's their public safety, that working with them, we have a good relationship with their public safety. So we make sure that, you know, they're told, you know, no more smoking in the dorms. And if it's the same room over and over again, then we're going to start to hit, you know, they're expected to clamp down on them.
So is it smoking, or is it like pulling false alarms?
No, pulling the false alarms are very, very rare now. It's usually smoking, vaping, cooking. Those are the problems that we see up there. It's usually those are down to those. The false alarms, the malicious false alarms, have died down tremendously.
Do they get charged for false alarms?
So there was a few years ago, there was the head of public safety had basically zero tolerance, and if if you were caught pulling a false alarm, you were kicked off campus. So we don't charge them, but they would handle it in-house. And, you know, anytime that we would show up there, public safety would have to be there. And then, you know, their electricians would have to reset the system. We wouldn't reset their system, so the kids would be outside longer or wait till, so it was costing Curry money, so they would, I'm not sure what they would do with it, but that's how we handled it, and that's how we still handle it. So the malicious false alarms are not that prevalent anymore.
And I don't know, I would just kind of, I think my opinion would be, not really a question, but like, it might be better to have like 3 vans at every station and use it for medical, because the amount of time that somebody goes out, you're 6 minutes away. So if they're out on a medical call with an engine,
Yep.
it's like they're still dealing with that person, and you're only 6 minutes at the most, right, from a firehouse. So there'd have to be a fire in between for it to really matter, you know what I mean?
Yeah, or a car accident where
Yeah.
we need the jaws of life, or that
Right.
water rescue, that ice rescue, something like that, where you would need that equipment, stuff that we wouldn't be able to carry in that pickup truck, or a lot of that stuff.
But you always have other people too at the firehouse.
No, so at each engine, there's no extra people at the firehouse.
There's not more than 3 people?
There's 3 people at each outside house, and then at headquarters, there's 5. There's the deputy, the ladder driver, and then the 3 on the engine.
Okay.
So there really isn't anybody else. When we go out as a team, and we stay out as a team, and the engine is our lifeblood. And, you know, one of the things that you talk about is you know, quicker. That's the slow vehicle. Slow is good. Slow is good. Slow is gets us there.
Yeah.
You know, knock on wood, you know, you have to arrive alive, and we have to abide by all traffic laws. The siren just basically asks your permission to pass, or ask your permission to allow us to go through that intersection. Yeah, one of the things I take pride in us is that they really don't speed. Sometimes it looks like they're speeding, but the engines are too slow. They really can't get up to speed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're very cautious because you don't want them going fast, because the faster you go, the longer it takes you to stop. So, and we've got a really, really, knock on wood, track record on motor vehicle accidents.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Okay, Macy, and then budget questions or override questions?
Here's a really quick question about the medical calls. What's the percentage of these calls that involve overdoses and the use of Narcan?
Oh, I actually do have that. And it all depends on, you know, how we term it, right? So it could be termed at, but I do have it here. So we did 10 overdoses last year. Oh, no, wait a minute, EMS. So 5 overdoses last year. But it could also be termed something else, you know, it could be just under the whole emergency medical response. All depends on the lieutenant, or if it's an acting lieutenant, somebody that's being trained in that position, that they may have just hit the emergency medical response versus the overdose. And this is a relatively new chart, so it may be one of those things where they just click on the first one that they see, so, and that's one of the challenges of getting better with.
Right.
That's why they're not giving the numbers that I really, really want, so, and it's just, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning, they come back and they click on or they may just misclick it.
So you don't categorize it as whether or not Narcan was administered?
No,
Or
we
no?
don't.
Okay.
We don't.
But it's
Thank
not
you.
a huge number.
But it's 5
It's not as high as it used to be, and it's still coming, you know. We may not administer the Narcan, maybe PD, or maybe the ambulance does, or maybe somebody else in the home does. So then it changes, you know, where, is it still an overdose where we don't do it? You know, you go there and you get someone not feeling well, and they're just kind of groggy coming out of that overdose. So it all depends on how we term it, you know. And that's the same thing with the brush fires and structure fires, where, you know, the reporting system is really, really kind of wonky. It doesn't really give you, and this is how PD sends us. So if they send us on the overdose, or they send us on the medical, our guys would have to go back in and change it. So they would have to be cognizant of going back in and changing the nature of the call, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Lori, do you have a question?
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm glad that they take their engine with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
No hands raised. Chief, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate
Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, any follow-up questions, please reach out.
We will, absolutely. So, members of the Warrant Committee, if there was something that you didn't ask, feel free to email the chief. You can email me. I can forward it to the chief in turn if I can't answer.
Or just stop by.
Or just swing by.
Because we're always
Sorry, I do have one last question. Who's usually first on scene?
It depends. So, like,
I think it's them.
we're on scene a lot.
You-
We're on
you-
scene a
you
lot
be-
first
you
a lot.
be PD?
Well, it depends,
Typically.
right? They could be tied up on a car, pulling over somebody over, or they just might not be in the area. Maybe they're enforcing traffic down at the lower end of Blue Hill Ave, and we're going to the upper end of Blue Hill Ave. It all depends, you know? It just, and again, you go back to the late 1800s, the people that designed this town, and they designed where those firehouses are, they did a really, really good job of spacing those firehouses out, so.
Great.
Strategically located.
What's that?
Strategically located.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Well, thank you very much.
Chief. Thank you much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, thanks, everybody. And we have the head of our Department of Public Works, Ms. Fernandez, here. Thank you so much, Ms. Fernandez, and thank you very much for your patience while we went through the fire department materials. And thank you for being here. And I want to congratulate you, as we had, I think, in the fall, on your new position.
Definitely not as tall as the chief.
Not as tall as the chief,
I had
but
to adjust my chair.
just as tall in terms of management and running the department and doing a great job.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate it. And thank you for sending along the numbers, Ms. Fernandez. You are one of the biggest departments in the town, and you're responsible for so much, keeping the town moving, operating safely, whether it be our roads or anything else. So I think along the same lines as Chief Madden, just if you'd like to highlight just some items in your budget that you think need attention. Furthermore, just in terms of needs, and we know there are a lot of needs of your department, and I think really lastly, the effects of a non-override, and what you would foresee some of the cuts you would have to make or things you could not do as a result of an override not being passed. So those are just kind of like three, but feel free, Ms. Fernandez, to mention anything that you think we should know that's important, so then in turn we can pass it on to the town.
So
the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the committee. My name is Marina Fernandez. I have been the Director of Public Works since December 2nd. Prior to that, I was the town engineer here in town since, I believe it was January 2021. The Public Works Department, as you mentioned, is the second largest department here in town. It's only second to the town school system. We are comprised of several different divisions, one of which includes the engineering department. And we are funded by 7 different budgets, 4 that are funded by the municipal tax levy, and 3 that are separate and distinct enterprise funds. So our personnel, I'll just go through pretty much what my predecessor used to do, which is to just discuss some components of the budget. I'll start off by talking to you a little bit about our personnel today. Our salary allocation is about 37.5% from the general fund. And then the remainder is funded by the enterprise funds, the water, the sewer, and the stormwater. We are staffed by 15 administrative supervisory positions and 26 full-time labor positions and 6 seasonal labor positions. Over the years, the DPW has struggled to fill vacancies, including this past year. We have yet to fulfill the town engineering position that's still open. Also for the labor position, we still have 4 W6, basically they're like mid-level positions. One of the greatest challenge is getting competitive compensations to the private sectors for commercial drivers, folks with commercial driver's licenses. That has made it very particularly difficult to get qualified employees. Fortunately for me, my predecessors have set up a CDL in-house driving program. It has been very competitive. We are with the culture now of trying to bring, instead of hiring from the outside for the labor positions, really bringing folks within our organization up, providing them all the necessary training, all the necessary skills and licenses in order for them to grow within our organization. These are the folks we already know from having worked with us. So our challenge here today is to keep them in-house. So that's the personnel. I'll move on and talk a little bit about the DPW general budget, which was prepared within the guidelines provided by the town administration. Basically, it covers all general level funds and expenses from fiscal year '25, and it has maintained the same level of services. And I have included a supplemental request of $127,940 for payment to contractors to restore a historical amount that has been reduced in prior year budgets. Third is snow and ice. We had a really active snow and ice season. It was historically that this line item is underfunded. It has a current set amount of $160,000. I believe my predecessor was here in August, and he did explain just to purchase the historical trend, just to purchase the salt to fulfill our salt shed alone is $250,000 in salt. What we saw this year were very challenging storms. Our folks were working very hard, a lot of overnight freezing. Every overnight freezing event is a minimum of 4 hours for us to cover the entire town. We are trying to really innovate and talk about technologies. We are one of the first ones to pilot program a system that tracks our salters across town, so we can figure out where they are, how many passes, and whether or not we have any trouble spots, and or if any of our drivers have missed a street. That is very important to us, because having that, I'm not gonna get too technical, but having that first salt pass is crucial of how we're gonna go about fighting that salt and snow and ice event in the next few hours. If we don't get that right, that really is gonna complicate and make us have to fight it for much longer, because we lose that barrier between the sheet of ice and the asphalt. We believe that having that tool that gives us a shot of the entire town was great about how we fought the snow this year. How we fought the ice. At this moment in time, the fiscal year '25 estimate is $650,000. That includes a lot of overtime. As you know, the events chose to happen over the weekend, which was great because there was, it was less traffic-y, but it did incur a lot more overtime. The first snow event started on, I believe it was like at 3 o'clock on a Friday, so that meant that our staff was working throughout the day, then were kept for another 48 hours after that, and it kicks in as a double time. It really depends on how the how the contract agreements are written. After certain hours, it goes from a half a time. Sundays are double times. It depends on the specifications of the contract for the laborers. So that's how our snow and ice event went this year. The challenge too was every snow and ice season is different from one to the other because it's almost like a puzzle. You have the number of equipments, you have the number of drivers, you have the type of snow, you have the temperature. So everything plays a role on how we're gonna go about doing this. The other line item, general accounting request that I wanted to highlight was vehicle maintenance. There was a lot of discussions here today prior to me coming to the mic with the chief. So want to let you know that every single vehicle within the town fleet goes through our budget. So we were talking about maintaining the fire engines. That is all something that we do, not within the police department's fleet budget or the fire department's budget. No, it's all, this is it. So when we're talking about the fire engines aging, we're feeling it in this budget. So the chief was explaining that there was a leak in the, and again, kudos again to our lead mechanic. He's doing an excellent job within all our vehicles. One of the things that we would like to do come this fiscal year is also pilot a system that we can better track our expenses, and then to your point earlier tonight, understand what the cost-benefit analysis, when do I let a car go, right? When is it costing us more? So having that better tracking management will go a long way. Although that tracking manager has not been quoted yet, and it's not within this level of services. Just want to let you know that. We did request approximately $100,000 increase in vehicle maintenance. That budget has historically not been increased over the years, and all you know who have vehicles, how much maintaining a vehicle has been costing us. Parts are going up. So this is a long overdue increase in the vehicle maintenance budget. In addition to the aging fire engines, that is a huge percentage of our budget. Unfortunately, I don't have that information in front of me, but moving forward in the next fiscal year, I'm going to be starting to track that fire departments separately, so I can provide you that cut. So we can see what having those older fire engines as backups and other really crucial roles do cost us. The other thing program that we're going to be talking about in the future, again, not here, is there is a, so the word that I want to use is, there is a fire engine retrofit program. So prior to getting a fire engine off of service and becoming a backup engine, it needs to go through a retrofitting program. That program right now costs us between $75,000 to $100,000, not within this budget, but I'm not sure if I'm supposed to talk about things that are not within the budget, but.
No, but let me ask you, that previous, what was that, the range in that previous?
Retrofit program?
The retrofit program.
$75,000 to $100,000. I'm going to be working with the chief in order to come up with a plan on how to start budgeting for the right program that is required to appropriately retrofit an engine so that we are not, again, chasing the repairs that are needed in order to be upkept within as a proper backup engine. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
This is just for fire? This is just for fire?
This is just
Because it's
fire,
such
okay.
a huge line item.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And that would still, you would expect that to still be in your budget?
Yes, not within this budget. I'm just giving you a little flavor.
It's not in
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
but you would keep it versus put it in the fire department
We
budget?
historically has always been, all of the fleet maintenance is all within our fleet maintenance.
Yeah.
It would be good to track it by department.
We are going to start, yeah. Believe it or not, it was not previously. It's easy for us to figure it out, but we will do a job doing that. And then moving forward, we're going to pilot software that is a fleet management software. It always costs the town money, but we can always pilot and let you know how much. If I can let you know that I can save the town this much more money because I know that this vehicle is costing a lot more to maintain, it would pay for the software itself.
I understand. And there's many things we believe that aren't happening.
But it's easy enough for us to, and we have a very good group of crew within the vehicle maintenance program that is willing to, all of these softwares are just as good as the information that you put in them. So if you're not feeding the required information, it's not giving you the right results. So, and everybody is very willing and excited to be using these programs. Solid waste, which is a huge line item within my budget. The solid waste is herein separated into several contracts. The first contract is the solid waste professional services. This is for the pest extermination contract service for removal and services for the recycle center. The recycle center takes propane, helium, oxygen, fire extinguishers. That line item is budget an amount of $52,116 based on the appropriate amount projected for the next fiscal year. For the collection of refuse, this is a contractual item for the collection and hauling of municipal solid waste. For fiscal year 26, it represent a 3% increase over our contractual price, which we believe it's a good amount of increased contract. And then it's based on our contract agreements for those services. For the transfer and disposal of refuse, this is a contractual item that relates to the cost of disposal by our solid waste. Our solid waste goes to the Covanta facility in Braintree. That's a transfer facility, and then from there, it goes to a facility in Rochester, Mass., which is an energy facility, and it incinerates our solid wastes and produces energy through a thermal dynamic generator. We have a 3-year agreement with the MSW Covanta disposal facility, which is now up this upcoming July 1st. We are waiting for a budget quote, but we are projecting a 5% increase, which we think will cover our services there. For the curbside recycling, again, we are using a 3% increase over year fiscal 25. It's a fixed contractual price. And for the disposal and processing of recycling materials, everything is a very variable cost tied to a regional index. I know that Chase was here and he explained to you all, so I'm not going to get into too much details. If you have more questions, I can answer those at the end. And then I have a line item for landfill, the regulatory required to measure and report groundwater location contaminants based upon Milton's landfill, which was closed a couple of decades ago. With this overview, I will return it back to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Ms. Fernandez, and we appreciate all the work that you do. And I know your predecessor was here, and we did discuss especially the vehicle maintenance and how your department really takes the lion's share of that. And it is a massive time investment for your department, from what I understand. Is that true? Not just the money.
That
to do
is
the
true. A
repairs.
lot of so that ties both labor and materials. So we have 3 full-time mechanics on site. We just got one Blue Hills local Milton. We hire a lot of local Milton students through our seasonal program, as well as through our engineering co-op program. I'm not going to name names, but we've been very, very fortunate. And then just the return is always great to see, of the residents coming in and getting trained within town. It's really amazing, both for the engineering and then also for the labor position. But anyways, 3 full-time. It includes all of their overtime too. Like the chief said, if they need an engine, they will respond right on site during, we will have mechanics respond to emergency locations as well.
Perfect. Andrew.
I've got a lot of mixed bag of questions. At the beginning, you had mentioned you had a CDL certification program in-house, and that you want to retain the people that you're training. What are you doing to ensure that you are not training and then letting people go after you've trained them and invested in them? Is there a retention policy or a clawback, or is there...
That's a great question, because my background is consulting, so it's private side. There is no clause currently for people undertaking. They pay for their own license. We provide them with the support, training equipment, and we have negotiated a lower cost within that system. So right now, if someone, I believe, it's a little less than $10,000 for you to get your own CDL license. By using the town program, because we have negotiated a cost-saving lump, it's about $2,500. They pay for their own.
Okay.
That cost is a huge cost for us to ask our employees, but they are doing it. They're paying it. We provide them with the sponsor, because we have to pay for a police detail, a state police trooper to attend every single exam, and even if it's several exams. But currently, we don't have a policy. Nothing has, we have retained all of our employees thus far. It's been a small program, but if I see that there is a tendency of them moving, we need to start thinking about how to incite them into continue their careers here.
Because even just a churn, there's a cost to that. Having people go through and overtime for a sponsor, et cetera. So I guess I would really encourage you to put that in place before it is even a problem. The other question, this is an easy one. How many buildings do you currently have? Just the one location at the...
We don't own the buildings, it would be consolidated facilities, but we are currently all within, our operations is within the 629 Randolph Avenue location. That location has 2 bays and 2 office buildings. Within one of the office buildings has a training room, and the other, I believe it's not a trailer. I don't know how would I
It's
describe that?
in the trash barrel, right? That's that area.
The first building on your left
Yeah,
as you
to the
enter it. It was someone's house that got donated to the DPW. I think that's the history back in the 50s. It was a contractor's, and that's still the same building. And the one great thing that I believe that this committee was involved with was providing the funds associating with the rebuild of the salt shed, which was a great game changer for this community this year. Because I don't know if you guys saw it in the news, but there was a salt shortage within Massachusetts, and we were not worried. We had enough salt, and I talked to our assistant director, and had we had that earlier salt shed, we would have been close to not having enough salt. So, game changer, having that enough capacity for the salt to be covered, and we were able to stock enough for the season. So, thanks for everyone who did that.
Yeah, and I was only asking that because I was looking at some of the utility costs. I'm just trying to gauge a sense of how many buildings or structures.
We also pay for all of that's also interesting. We don't pay for just the buildings that we are occupying. We also pay for electricity for this building,
Oh, for town
Got it.
hall.
town hall. Yeah,
So that falls in your budget.
pretty sure, but you guys all look very, so we should double check that. I'm pretty sure that we do.
And
There's a lot of crossovers that the town, the DPW,
The public works, so that makes sense.
I guess,
Yeah, but why would it?
library pays for its own, the school pays for its own, town hall, I believe is DPW.
and that leads to my next question.
Ask them all on it.
With regards to maintenance for fire, police, I know you intend to put in tracking, but even if it's soft dollars moving around and line items like town hall building, ideally, we would see allocations of what your budget is being either directly in each department budget, or at least much more visible in here for your benefit, the departments, because I think it's an unfair burden for the DPW to take on, given their decisions affect your budget, so there are things outside of your control.
I believe that also, you're seeing a lot of electricity bills for a lot of things that are, so some, the East Milton deck, that's also covered by us, that is fully electric, so it's a lot more than just the buildings. Islands, some islands have water, electricity, we pay for that. And so a lot of the utilities for a lot of these miscellaneous things come to DPW. I'm fully aware of it. I'm doing, again, I just took the position in December, but I'm very data driven, sounds like what you are too. And getting that information to know exactly where everything is going in is crucial.
And the perspective I'm really looking at it from is when we're looking, as a finance committee, when we're looking at line items, it's easiest to focus our energies on the larger line items, and without really understanding what's in there, it's really difficult to say whether that's appropriate that we're doing. Like if we're looking at heat, $47,000 a year for 3 buildings sounds like a lot until you find out what you're really servicing is town hall and God knows what other structures. So it's, I think, helpful for everyone to have that granularity. And I think the last question I had is there is other contractual services line item for $113,000. What exactly is that?
I'll have to get back to you. For which item?
Other contractual services?
You're looking at the spreadsheet here?
Yeah, I'm looking at Schedule E of the budget that you sent.
Yeah, I have to, it's for the general expenses, right?
Yes.
I can get back to you as to what historically has been spent in
Okay.
that item. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
That's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Brian?
I lost my place. The, here it is. You pay roughly for trash pickup 1.6 million a year, right?
Right.
Between, yeah, the contractor and then the disposal. And that must be net. Is that net of what the residents pay?
I mean, that's the,
Like with stickers and everything else? Or is that not on
I
this?
believe, and I watched the, I've been in conversations with Amy and my predecessor. I believe that tax levy pays for some solid waste, so everybody in town pays. Plus, we have the stickers.
Right. Well, I guess that's my question. Like, how much do people pay in the town for it along with the stickers? And does it cover the cost of that? That'd be one question. But where's the income from that? Is that on, does anyone know?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question, because if residents are paying for trash pickup with either an annual sticker or weekly stickers, how's that affecting the budget? And what is the town paying for it, and why? If it's coming out of the residents of the town. Is that what you're?
Yeah, right. And
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering,
what
too.
budget is that under?
Right,
I don't think
right.
it's under this,
That's
is
what
my
I'm wondering,
suspicion.
too.
I mean, it's got to be, because $138 can't,
Yeah.
or 168 can't cover the cost of trash
Like I said, I think,
ungenerated.
I don't-
I believe that everybody pays for the solid waste, a percentage. I don't quote me, but like a 1/4%.
Okay.
And then the remainder is revenue from not only the trash sticker, but also some folks pay for the bin, their own bin. And that's $208 a bin. And that makes up for all of our solid waste.
Right. You probably don't know the answer, but I wonder where that, if that
That'll be an
nets.
Amy question, right?
It's an Amy question.
It's
probably.
on the revenue.
Question.
Sorry,
And-
it's on the revenue under local receipts. It's on the revenue
Say that
side. of the
again,
budget
Jay?
Under local. It's on the revenue side. If you look at the budget spreadsheet, it's on the revenue under local receipts.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
It
I'll
was
look at it.
like 1.1 million previously, but it's gone up a lot because we raised it last year.
And so it's costing us, at least it's costing us 1.6 million to dump the trash. And it's costing us 1.3 to get rid of recycling too, which also I wonder what the net on that is too. But that's, I don't really know. That seems, that goes up to bid. That's net of any income we get from recycling, right? Like we recycle like aluminum and glass and everything else in there, I presume. There's some income from
Correct.
that.
There is, and again, I believe that my predecessor was here and he explained it in detail. There is a processing fee for the recycle, and then there's commodity prices. And the commodity fee, I believe that the last one was around 125, the processing fee is $125. That's what costs us to submit the recyclables to the facility for processing. And then the net price is that minus the commodities that we get paid for. And I believe that we end up paying around $80, $85 for the facility, because the commodities prices have gone down, so the amount of money that we were getting paid for the plastics are not as high as it has been historically. And in addition to that, that's why it's very important for everybody to do a good job when recycling, because if there are things that are non-recyclable, we get penalized for that. We are we actually pay for it to be disposed of as trash, and actually a little bit more expensive than if we were disposed as real trash in the right way. And that's about, they do an audit every year, which I'm gonna be working on with our new environmental coordinator to redo that audit. But right now, we are at about 20% of everyone's recyclable is actual non-recyclable items. Yeah, and that really yanks a good amount of money from our,
Be good to know how much that cost us.
and yeah, so there is a whole, we've been working with, I have been doing a lot of work and trying to figure out what other communities are doing. Again, doing the audit helps us understand what are the things that people are thinking it's recyclable, so we can do a better job of doing an outreach program and educating folks, really, you shouldn't be throwing this away in the recyclables. And then similarly, we can do an audit in our trash and figure out what things are recyclable that people should be actually sending to the recycle facility, not the trash. So there's really interesting programs out there that we can do as DPW without a lot of cost in order to understand and help out with the outreach. So hopefully over the years, we'll see that number turn.
Yes, I mean, considering there's an override going in, people might really care about the costs, that, you know, if they're doing something that's costing the town money, so it'd be a good thing to advertise that.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know. And does this is a 3-year contract, and it's up, you said?
So
Recycle?
I want to say that, again, my predecessors did a good job figuring this out. They broke out, for both the recycle and the solid waste, they broke it out into the hauling and then the disposal. That gives us a bit more bargaining power within this environment to work with, some communities do disposal and transportation together, and that doesn't give them a lot of ability to change out or compare prices. Having them separate has allowed us to do that. But every time we look at, all right, I'm going to change my transfer location, well, that adds cost to the transportation. So if I'm chasing a cost that is less on the disposal, it could potentially increase my transportation. So that is always something that we are looking at. With that being said, this year, what my costs that are up are not the transportation costs, are the disposal facilities. So we're looking at renegotiating with Avon for the recyclables and renegotiating with Covanta, which was waste management in Braintree.
Does it go out to bid? How many companies bid on it, do you know?
It's not required to go out to bid. It's exclusionary from the bid. So we will require, what I'm going to be working on is we're requiring quotes. There's only a handful of, a little less than a handful of people anyway, so. And again, because my, only my disposal facilities are up, not my transportation, if I change my disposal facilities, I could be significantly changing my transportation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do co-yearly, coincide the end of both years. So the next one I have the buying power that I think was meant for me to have when my predecessors divided those contracts
That's a good
out.
idea, yeah.
Little by little.
So, yeah. Yeah, it just seems weird that, it seems like the recycling, you'd be getting some income from it, but it's like almost as much as just the trash.
There is a huge importance, and again, this is me having been an environmental engineer for more years than I would like to say in public. The importance of us to continue to do the recycling is more than the cost today. This is the cost, again, for tomorrow. Other landfills are filling up, and there is a lack of facilities within Massachusetts. I believe it has only a handful of open landfills and facilities that are, we have our location, we are able to dispose of. This is really ensuring our continued ability to dispose of our waste in the future. This is only going to get more and more expensive. So if we just say, let's stop recycling, the costs are there, done. It's going to catch up with you in a few years. The facility in Braintree, I believe that it will, it only has a license for another 6 years. So after that, I am not sure where they're going to go. That will change our transportation costs. So the more that we use the ability, so space like time, we cannot buy, right? So we need to continue to be diligent about recycling.
Great.
Okay.
Macy?
Does the town support composting? I know that Black Earth is, which is what I use, but it's based on the number of residences that sign up. I know the town suggests it, but have you thought about starting a program like the City of Boston, where?
I have.
Oh, good.
I have thought about it.
They use it to generate power, not just to avoid
Yeah.
the landfills and for gardening purposes. But
So for those that are watching here, is the idea, and you're not familiar, Black Earth compost, it's too costly for the town to run our own our own composting pickup and disposal, et cetera. So there are some third-party vendors out there, and we have been working with Black Earth composting. The city of Quincy, the city of Boston, we are looking at what Boston has been doing and trying to see how we can scale it here. We have $18,000. It's called a dividend program. It's from Mass DP that provides us with that grant every year as long as we fulfill the requirements. We are working on a plan to use some of that money to buy composting bins for our residents, and I believe that the city of Boston says every year they will do 100. We already have. Black Earth Composting provides a 20% overall discount for all users after a certain amount of residents are within the program. We've already surpassed that, which I believe the cutoff is 400. We've surpassed that, so we have more than 400 current residents in the town of Milton that are subscribing to that plan. And again, I am going to be working with our new environmental coordinator and come up with a feasible plan that will make sense to us and make sense within our grant in order to provide some sort of incentive for folks to continue to stay within with the compost. And then to the point is, again, using less of our landfills, hopefully that will stretch our money further, our space further. That's what we are trying to do.
I believe the city of Boston, they're using their compost pickups for renewable energy. Is that true? I read that somewhere.
I believe that they're using with I think the city of Boston, I could be wrong, MWRA, they're using with MWRA. But that's another thing that I am trying to study is whether or not just not give, because even if you get a bin, it's still very costly. It's about $3 a week. And I know that some folks probably don't have they want to do the right thing, but they probably don't want to be tied up to $3 a week in additional expense. One of the things that I'm going to also be looking at is having a couple of locations within the town where you can go in and dump it off, so then you don't have to spend, and then you just get the 1 gallon kitchen from composting, And if folks, I need to do my research in order to see if that's something that it will work. I believe that the city of Boston has done a hybrid.
Yeah.
They both provide folks with the pickup option as well as the drop-off
Yes.
option.
They definitely, I know some towns, they'll have their DBW sites where people can turn in their compost.
Yeah.
And most of Cape Cod does that. They'll have their drop-off, but.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah.
for us,
Okay.
if folks were willing to do it, and then they don't have to worry about the $3 a week pickup. And then if it becomes a successful program, we can add a second location.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Ron is online. Ron?
Hi, Ron.
Hi, thanks for sharing all this information. It's super helpful.
Yeah.
First, I love that you appreciate what your predecessors have done and how they've helped put a lot of processes in place that work well for you. I was wondering, given you're new in your role, have you been looking at ways that, maybe in a longer time horizon than 1 year, are there ways that you can find new cost savings or new efficiencies for the department with your fresh set of eyes? Just wanted to hear if there are any thoughts you had there, or if that's on your kind of 120, 180-day plan.
Hi, Ron. We've already fully did a test pilot program with Plow Ops, which is the system I explained to you about that has, I can now track the number of passes and locations of all of our salting program.
Yep.
That's not something that was done here. I believe that it is hard to do a cost-saving analysis because not every snowstorm is similarly, but I have started to map the dollars spent versus snowfall. Although again, that's not apples to apples because like I explained to you earlier, having snows fall in, over the weekends and holidays, which we had this past winter, was really tough to compare to one that is on a working day period. And there's so many other things related to snow and ice, not only just the amount of salt, but we're going to look at ways to measure our successes within that program. But we have already been able to tell, because sometimes there would be a couple of missed streets within assault operations, and we get that call again, and then I have to dispatch a whole set of, a couple of trucks to salt missed locations, and if I'm doing less of that, that definitely is a cost saving.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, the other thing that I think that's the biggest system that I have put into place in a very short time.
Great. I think even your explanation of why you need to get the trucks out salting before the snow and ice hits makes total sense to me, because as an uninformed citizen, I always see the trucks and I'm wondering, why are they salting when it's not snowing? And I think a lot of the citizens can benefit from understanding where we invest and spend money. And I think a lot of people think that makes no sense and the government doesn't understand what they're doing and they're just salting for no reason. And I do think the more education we provide to the town, then they can understand where their dollars are being spent, and they can feel more comfortable that all these have justifications and they're experts doing these things. So thank you for that explanation. And I would just say, if we can provide more of the educational information out there on a website or on our town website, I think that'd be good for folks. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. I will be more diligent about trying to put more Facebook posts about us being out there.
Now, the streets are always so clean. Really appreciate that.
Yeah,
That was really helpful earlier when you were talking about how tax levy covered some of the solid waste and some of it came from the actual fees, when fees charged to town residents. But when you're looking at enterprise fund line items like sewer, water, stormwater, do the costs that are charged to residents today reflect the true costs of the program? for each of those line items. And the reason I ask that question is I'm curious about entities that make pilot payments and whether or not the payments in lieu of taxes accurately reflect what they're consuming. I'm assuming they're not sending municipal waste to the town, but they're using other services that the town provides or benefits from it. And I just want to make sure that what they're paying accurately reflects their share of the burden to the town.
Okay.
So when you look at water and sewer, we get charged X dollars for water and sewer. Does that reflect what you collect in water tax revenue? Does that accurately reflect what the town pays for that service?
Right. That, I would defer that to Amy. I'm
Okay.
still quite new. I don't want to speak on that.
Yeah, and really, I just want to get to make sure that you're not in a situation where the DPW has all these line items for things that are outside of your control, and that entities like Milton Academy or Curry that uses or benefits from municipal services are making fair payments. And
Aren't they paying water and sewer bills?
I believe everybody pays water and sewer
okay.
and stormwater.
Yes.
are there other fees or services that they benefit from that
Well,
pilot?
they would, but I think those they do.
Okay,
pay
they do,
for. So,
okay.
but the question still begs, is the pilot fee that they pay covering the cost of services?
That,
No.
and
And that's another.
yeah,
That's
and so we, in order,
But this, I think, the water and sewer.
and it's not unique to you, but I think every municipal department, the more granular we're able to get in terms of services, the more accurately you can push back on entities like
Right.
not certain academies that may be in town to pay their fair burden.
If you don't feel like I have adequately responded to your question, if I could have that ability to respond and with.
No, that is not what I'm saying at all. I think, it just to be 100% clear,
But if I can provide maybe further analysis.
no, really, what I would,
I feel like I need
for
a
your
thorough,
department,
like-
for your department and your budget's benefit, I think it'd be really helpful to understand what are the services that are being provided by your department to anywhere outside, and that includes other town hall, and it also includes the entities that are exempt from paying anything that would otherwise pay into the tax, contribute to the tax levy. So, yes, I sort of echoing what Ron said, in that I really appreciate how you're looking at and thinking about things, and that the further the entire town or all the departments in the town are able to think that way and also think together, the more we'll benefit.
Of course.
Mr. Fernandez, I wanted to ask you just a couple of things. A couple of things that kind of bounce around, just hearing conversation every once in a while. Road paving in town. What does that look like from your perspective as the head of the DPW in terms of the condition of the roads in the town? What roads or percentage of roads are critical in terms of needs for paving? Moderate?
I would if you want me to give a specific presentation on our road this might not be the forum, but I'm sure I'll figure out with Nick a better forum to present on how our roads are aging. We're just entering into a planning agreement with a third party. They do a PCR rating system of all of our roads. But on a nutshell, our roads are aging faster than we're being able to maintain them. The town engineering department, while I was there, and continuously, we've been trying to use every single tool that is made available to us in order to stretch those dollars further. For anyone who has the finance background, or even if you think about it as your property, your own house, right? If you defer maintenance long enough, it becomes too expensive, because then you're gonna have to tear the house down and build a new one. That's what happens to our roads. If we are not maintaining them, so sometimes, and again, to Ron's point, even as myself, as a resident, or sometimes I picture my mom seeing the things that are happening that I'm working on. They probably don't understand, well, my road just got paved, and now I have someone 2 years later, they're taking care and they're doing crack seal, or they're doing a fog seal. Fog seal is kind of like it's kind of like when you put sun lotion. So you have a brand new surface and you put that sun lotion in, engineering standard has already shown us that by you applying that fog seal, which is just a little tiny amount of dollars, I can make that road age, defer the aging further. That gives, again, to your point, the life cycle analysis of how much I'm spending on a road. At the end of the day, I'm going to spend a lot less by putting that. And I don't know if folks understand that sometimes we come back several times to a road. It's just we're maintaining what we just built. And then someone who has a road that's beyond repair, with not so much traveled, the cost-benefit analysis for me to work on a road that has only about 4 or 5 homes, and now it's beyond my ability to repair it, I have to reconstruct it, that's not really going to give me the dollar, that's not going to give me the equity for the entire town, right? So we've been doing tons of research, and we have not been afraid to use tools that are made available to us in order to differentiate our portfolio, how we're treating roads, which mechanism is best for that type of travel lane. Sometimes, so for example, if you guys look at Reedsdale, we just did a micro layer, double micro layer. It was in pretty good shape. We did not want to wait until I had to mill and overlay, because that's a lot more costly, so we do a double micro. And so now you have a better surface. I didn't spend that much time, and now I have deferred that further out. So that's really going to pay off at the long run. But no, we usually get $630,000 from the state, from our 690, from our Chapter 90, and the town allocates an additional $1 million. I believe that this year we've allocated an additional $100,000 for sidewalks. When you think of 1.6, which is the combined Chapter 90 and the town allocation, that has to go for everything. That covers all the roads that we have to pave that year. That also covers all the sidewalks, because once we're doing water main projects and we do the roads, the gas also wants in. And that's another thing that I believe I speak very loudly about, is even if we were provided with additional money for just paving, let's say that $10 million fell from the sky and I could pave the entire town, I would still be doing a little bit of disservice if I didn't note to you that, hey, now I don't have the water main done. So what happens is those trucks are going to travel down that road. It's going to insert additional pressure into the water mains. If I have 1906 water mains, they are going to break literally 3 weeks after I just paved a brand new road. It happens all the time, all the time. So.
I always notice that, like,
Yeah.
they're digging the road up, replacing a pipe. Like, that's not in Milton, but like,
Everywhere.
other places
Yeah.
I go, like, didn't they just?
Because we have the trucks and you have the construction going on. It is straining. So these are not too much of a coincidence. You have 1906 water main. They are going to very likely break now that you just the road. So we really need to start thinking about when I get to a road that I have to do a full reconstruction, I also have to start thinking about reconstructing from the bottom up. So that means I will do my water mains if they're old. I'll call the gas company, make sure that they're there in time. I will CCTV the drains, make sure that I don't have any drains that are collapsed, because then what happens is you get a sinkhole 3 months later. So there's a whole set of utility work that needs to be done in conjunction of repaving the water mains. And then I do the sidewalks too. So it's very, we have a whole flow chart on how to provide us that mechanism so that we are not missing. And in addition to that, again, not throwing too much, that's the opportunity that I have to look at stormwater, right? If I have an opportunity to do some sort of a green infrastructure, the city of San Diego has a really great program that it has almost like green infrastructure and things of that nature are almost like a screen prior to all that flow chart that I explained to you. I gotta make sure my water mains are done, my gas are done. Is there opportunity for green infrastructure? Because again, talking about cost-benefit analysis, if I'm going to do green infrastructure, that's the time for me to do it. My roads are already dug up. I'll do it at that point. That will cost a lot less than me redigging a road and then having to repave it and follow that whole suit around. So,
If you were able, Ms. Fernandez, to estimate what would be the outstanding cost for paving roads in Milton that need to be paved?
That report that is coming out, we're doing, if I were going to give you a number now, it would be a 2018 number because that was the last report.
Can you give me that number?
I can. It's on
Isn't,
the
is,
website.
what about the one that, it says it's from 24. Oh, but it's the date of inspections was 18. 21.4 million.
Yeah.
21.
That's no.
Thank you, Lou. So
Thank you.
21.4 as of 2018.
Yeah.
I think if you did some type of discussion on this, you'd have a lot of people in town who would love to show up and listen. And you could do it in conjunction with traffic mitigation, because that's my second question.
Sure.
And I know your predecessor, Mr. Chase Berkeley, had discussed this with us on for a couple of years, and I know there were several projects pending or the ideas behind some more mitigation. Can you share in terms of maybe any projects or any thoughts concerning traffic that the DPW could help with, and what would that cost be?
So I believe that we have a line item of $100,000 a year for traffic mitigation. What we have in the past done, because it's a brand new line item, I believe it was firstly added last year. Prior to that, there was just a lot of people, complaints, but there wasn't really a mode for us to actually put these things into action. One of the things that we did was do I think one of your lists is on, one of your members is on
Gillen?
Governor Road. That was one of the projects, one of the first projects that we put into place, which was a traffic calming program for Governor Roads, which is a cut through. But it became very apparent very quickly, and again, to the point of me trying to kind of understand that there is similar problems all over the town.
Yeah.
And, one may even argue that the entire town is a big cut through, right? What I would like to, so even though there are a couple things that seem to have been, I have a group of folks that we're working on. We're working with residents on Hillside to try to help them during the Mass DOT project, but we are having Mass DOT lead that because it will not take from our budget, but Mass DOT's current budget for that project, which is great. We can get that traffic calming during that construction done without much of a burden to our existing budget. That's how we stretch our budget. And then in addition to that, we have the Canton Ave group of residents on Dollar, by Canton and Dollar Lane. We're looking at some traffic calming there too. But we also are looking at a crosswalk at St. Mary's, and we just finished a crosswalk on Canton across from Town Hall. But it's become very apparent to us that we need a third-party reviewer to look at the town and prioritize that for us, either through setting up standards. So what may seem to me like an issue, like, oh, I have people speeding, is not really an issue when you look at the data. Or vice versa. I could, maybe my tolerance for speeding is different than your tolerance for speeding because you have a 2-year-old and I'm never home, right? So having data to back it up. So like, what is going to be a threshold? When are we going to start looking at towns and community, either neighborhoods or streets and prioritizing? So I think that working with the town right now is, especially when we do get the town engineer, is to come up with a plan on how we're going to prioritize so that we just don't have folks calling in with their problems and trying to put a Band-Aid in everything. We'll have a plan. These are the roads that we're targeting because they meet these thresholds and giving us a good path forward. Does that make sense?
It makes that sense. So the budget has set, the increase was 20 last year, correct? Am I mistaken? And now it's 100.
I believe so.
Okay, so yeah, that was just one of those are just two of the big questions I had. One other thing, the trash collection contract, is that up soon?
The
July?
collection will be fiscal year 27.
Fiscal year 27.
And what we're trying to do is get the disposal renewed for fiscal year 27. So in fiscal 27, I will work on all four contracts at once.
Okay. And that was a 3% increase per the contract for the collection
Correct.
this year, okay. Okay. Those are all the questions I have.
Judy.
And Judy. Thanks.
I don't have a question, but a comment. In regards to water and sewer bills, all properties, nonprofit and residential and commercial, all pay water and sewer. And everyone pays
Stormwater.
stormwater.
Yep.
And what is interesting about that is, and I asked Nick when he was in, and I just didn't follow through to get the exact number. But your department, Consolidated Facilities, pays for the stormwater for some of the town buildings. Like the Council on Aging at Walnut Street, because when I did her a budget, I go, where's your stormwater? And she goes, oh, Consolidated Facilities. Our stormwater comes out of your budget, right?
I'm not Consolidated Facility, so Consolidated Facility is not under DPW.
Okay, my mistake then. Then
But
whoever
you're right, but you're right.
consolidated.
Your statement is correct. Some is very confusing. Some, I believe, like the COA,
You're right, and I have their budget actually on the counter over here. And as I go, where's your stormwater? And Consolidated Facilities pays their stormwater. Whereas down at the cemetery, their budget, that was the first thing on their line item was the stormwater. For me, it seemed like a huge number, $11,000. But whether you're a church or a school as a nonprofit,
correct.
because that question came up, that is a town service that's paid for by everyone, actually.
Correct. So the stormwater is a factor of the area.
Permeable
Yeah.
and non-permeable, yeah.
Yeah. So it makes, and that's what we use to do all of our street sweepings and all of our catch basin
Leaf
cleaning.
pickup,
And what?
yard waste pickup
Yes.
comes out of the stormwater fees, not the trash and the stormwater fee. My understanding is the stormwater fees pay for the street sweeping and the yard waste pickups that happen. I think.
Correct. That's why it's not, it wasn't
times a
included
year.
here on the GPW general, the general
Yeah.
fund.
Right. Okay, well, that was for a member that was worrying about water being a town service. It is. You have the pipes that gets to us, but entities themselves, whether it be private citizens or profits or nonprofits, pays all their own water. Thank
Yes,
you.
And most of those entities also pay for their own trash pickup through a third party, not us.
Right, right, or if they do put out if it's a small nonprofit, they will put out their bins and, but have paid for them. Paid
Correct.
for the trash portion.
Correct.
Thank you.
Andrew?
I have a quick question. When you're doing major digs and you're talking about replacing water mains, for example, have you thought about burying any other services like utilities,
Bearing?
telco, burying like electrical,
We
telco,
don't own
fiber?
Electrical, we don't own those utilities. We only own water, sewer, and drains. National Grid owns the gas.
Enstar owns, Verizon owns the poles, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then,
Eversource owns the electrical powers. So,
who owns the poles? But I thought I've seen town vehicles replacing poles in certain situations. Is it a mistake?
no, we maintain the light fixtures and the
Okay.
poles. And I believe there's also fire and there's other town utilities in some of the poles, there are cameras, so, but we are not, installing poles.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions for Ms. Fernandez just regarding the general budget? Some other, items of interest? I've seen no hands raised. Ms. Fernandez, can you talk about maybe a little bit of about the override? And if we don't have one, just generally, what threats do that propose to some of the work that you're going to have, that you traditionally do for the town?
So the override would result in the following: decrease in service. We currently have 2 co-op positions for the engineering department. We work, as I said, with Northeastern, WPI, as well as UMass, in as recent as New Hampshire University. So both of those positions would be cut. Out of the 6 seasonal at the operations side, the 4 would be cut. For the co-ops, they help us track all of the work that we do in the summer. They are not necessarily overseeing construction work, but they're helping oversee, they do, so for example, this summer, we had 2 co-ops do the house-to-house program for the lead services. They were the one that identified and went out and and also some of the water samplings were done by them. So they do a lot of work that our personnel with just one town engineer and one civil engineer are unable to do. After construction season, they go out and they make sure that all of the reconstructed sidewalks and ramps are ADA compliant. So they're literally out there leveling and making sure that everything is leveled, so that we'll pay the contractor only after all of the angles are measured. For the seasonal work, they help pick up trash around town. They help pick up mattresses. During the winter break, they, if there are any trees that were left, and it was a windy day, they come in and they help pick it up. They do a lot of the work that allows our staff to continue to focus on more on more detailed work, if you mean. And then currently, we have a line item for $80,000 to fund our traffic engineer, who right now we have it as a consultant. So basically, those are the requests that come through Traffic Commission to look at a section in town or a road and analyze it. So that will be cut to zero. And then we would also decrease our current level of services for vehicle maintenance by $30,000. So everything is very, very essential. And then the other thing that I want to say, any further decrease in personnel and budget items, again, these are only 37.5 of those come from the general fund, which where the override, what we're talking about. So if I'm reducing a 100,000 in one position, really you're not seeing the 100,000. You're seeing the 37,500 from the general fund, helping with the override. Does that make sense? So you'd see a greater level of reduction of the service than really is the cost. And we are already very short-staffed. I think not too long ago, the department was much, much heftier. We had a lot more folks, and I'm talking about a decade ago. It's just how DPW has aged over the years.
Is there any specific reason? Is that compensation? Is that finding specialized people to do specific?
Well, as of 1992, all of the water services, everything. So if you had a water service break, you wouldn't call a contractor, you call DPW.
That's right, okay.
DPW did all of the work in town, and then you got invoiced by DPW. I'm not sure how, I'm sure that it wasn't cost effective for the town, and then little by little, that has been reduced. But also, even with the 4 positions that we have open, we just don't have folks coming in the door with the aptitude and the skills set to come in here. We're really being, the private sector is being really competitive about on the operation side, on the salary, and then on the more of the office side, they're very competitive because there's a lot of work from home option, which we don't have. And then when you're like, oh, do I want a pension or do I want to work from home today? Well, a lot of folks are choosing working from home for all sorts of different reasons in their personal life, so.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Are you losing people to the state, to private sector, other municipalities who might be paying more?
Some, yes. But we're working with the town administrator. He's paying attention to some of this and trying to make some of the, some of the positions very, so we can hire some of the key positions that we're really missing.
Okay. And have you found, as Andrew talked with you, the commercial drivers program, has that, I remember when that was started, has that been beneficial for the
Yeah,
department?
I think that the morale of the staff, now they all have their license, they're all, they're getting the training. In addition to the CDL license, since this year alone, we have, I'm working with Carla, who's our HR director, and she and I and some other folks also within the town are setting up a bunch of training in-house, so that, again, it's the idea of how do we give folks within our organization the tools that they need to succeed so that they're safe. So we're looking at OSHA 10 training for everyone that has not done OSHA 10 training. We're looking at first aid training. So, because they're working and they're getting injured, they cut a finger here, there, hopefully they don't. But, having that training, again, coming from the private side, that brings morale, because you're being, if for very little, to be honest, for $0, all those trainings, because we're working with our insurance company. Cost benefit, it not $0 totally, because it's within their working time, not overtime, but working period. We just allocate the training, and but it's in. And also in reducing the risks that would also turn around to have a dollar amount related to someone getting injured. And if we can prevent an injury, and if we can get a worker to go back to their loved ones at the end of the day, it definitely pays off.
And just one more question. And I assume, I think I know the answer, but if the certain positions, the seasonal and the co-op positions are slashed, I mean, you don't have a town engineer right now. How do you backfill those with your specialized workers? You have to pay them overtime. How does that work?
So if we get, that's a good point. Either the services wouldn't get done to the level that they were being done, or we would have to require more overtime from our staff, which, right now, everybody is already doing a lot of work.
I just think of your lead pipe project and all the ledgers that need to be gone through, and make sure that that's done timely. This is just things.
That's a good. So I wanted to do. You miss a lot of the oversight. That's the end of the day. So the co-ops are out there checking all of the patches. So basically, we get 300 and something permits in addition to all the National Grid for all of the patches that they do around town. And then we actually go over every single patch and make, okay, what kind of repair does it need to be done after the winter moratorium? And that's all handwork. You send an intern, they take the picture, the catalog, they grade it, and then we provide that that information to whoever is the owner of that patch for them to come in. They do the work, and then we double check. So we're just gonna be delaying all of that. And then at the end of the day, I believe that we end up paying as citizens, because then our roads are not in that great of a shape, because the patch wasn't done to, a patch fell through the cracks, to be honest. So definitely it comes at a very high cost.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions, anything you can think of concerning the DPW work? No. Associated work? No? Ms. Fernandez, thank you so much.
Great job.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for your patience when you got here today, and I know that in a couple of weeks we're going to be speaking to you about Squantum Street.
Yes.
So, but that's for another evening. But looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
They were on a committee. if you like, we could engage in a discussion about fire department or public works. They were very thorough, but I don't know if anybody, obviously I would open it up if anybody had something they wanted to say or point out. And if you don't, that's fine too.
We should probably have a whole night to the schools, because if that took all night for just 2 of those, and the schools is the biggest, just block off 2 nights for that then.
Yeah, so if there's
For
no
consideration.
Yeah, so I think, this is what I neglected to talk about in the beginning of the meeting. So just in terms of tomorrow, I had to cancel that meeting. Planning board had some issues with their scheduling. They have not yet to vote on the amendments to the site plan and the ADU. They're going to be doing that on Thursday now, which doesn't bode well for our schedule this week. So that meeting was canceled. There's really, there's nothing else. I do not, and we do not have a physical copy of the warrant yet in print. So obviously, the town is working on getting us that so we can begin to discuss the other articles. But on Wednesday, we're going to have schools come in. I did, as you can see, put planning board, discussion and vote on those things. That's not going to happen. So we're just going to be having schools on Wednesday. So they're going to be running a little bit late. They have a previous engagement earlier that afternoon, so they'll probably be coming in around 7:30 or so. So we're going to have a little bit of time in the beginning of the meeting just to talk, just discuss. We can talk about scheduling, who's coming in. I think another thing, and it happened tonight, we usually traditionally have like Amy and Nick in towards the very end to answer like the last minute budget stuff. If you had stuff where Amy is responsible for the numbers, I know Brian, there's a couple of things you mentioned, just if you can just remember them and just hit Amy up, or you can send her an email and she can just share with everybody. But Nick and Amy will come in one more time. To Steve's point, we'll see what schools has to offer on Wednesday. They might be coming in the following week too. So there's a lot of questions, not a lot of answers for you, Warrant Committee, I'm sorry. But we're going to take them as they come. So schools is up next. We'll deal with planning board, ADU, site plan, floodplain when we deal with the other articles. I don't think those are too controversial. I'm sure we'd like to talk about them. That's fair. But those are going to be dealt with in the regular course. Let's focus on schools Wednesday and just kind of one day at a time to see what we have next week. I assume and I will be talking to Nick very soon just about the actual physical warrant. That's going to be going to print at the end of next week. So I know Brian, we had some comments just about the planning stuff, schools, school subcommittee, the school comments, and then obviously we have the June town meeting. So there'll be some other stuff we'll be focusing on, then some things we'll be seeing again from the planning board, from the select board.
Just,
Brian.
can I ask, all the other items, like we had library and town government items, like consolidated facilities and stuff. Do you want to start bringing those people in?
I don't think we're going to have time to bring those people in.
Okay.
So I think in terms of the government committee, in terms of whatever people had looked at in the fall, if you want to bring that forward and to discuss it, I know Ron had circulated some things, but if you want to just come forward with that and share that with us, the fall town meeting schedule really threw us for a loop. Julia.
I was just going to make a suggestion, given that it is 10:15 already. Should we table any discussion tonight about the presentations we heard and use the first part of the meeting on Wednesday for that, given that the school committee won't be meeting with us until a little bit later, it sounds like?
I second that.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds good. I wasn't expecting anybody to want to discuss anything this evening anyway, but Julia, thank you very much. I think that's a good idea. That would be a good use of our time in the beginning of the meeting.
There's one thing I just didn't understand, that end of Ms. Fernandez's comment. She said the impact of the override would be greater than the actual reduction in revenues with regards to the general fund? I didn't really understand what she meant by that. So 30%, 7% of the budget comes from the tax levy, right? Or the general fund. Why would an override have a disproportionate impact?
Was she talking about the monies that would actually come off the general fund, the levy? Like if it was $100,000 savings, was
Right, $100,000 looks like 37.
is only 37
$37,500 coming off the general fund.
off the ledger sheet. So every 100,000 in savings, we see only a 37% savings on the bottom line on the
Got
ledger
it,
sheet.
okay.
Okay, you scared me, Andrew, because
No, no,
I thought I understood it.
No, I wasn't sure what, okay.
So, Warrant Committee, this is the situation we have in front of us. It's going to be busy, but we're kind of in standby mode.
Hurry up and wait.
It's worse than last year,
Yeah.
which is, right, Lori? Which is kind of hard to believe. Not your fault, though.
It's always hard to believe. It's
Seriously.
just so unbelievable.
So all that being said, is anybody at home or here have any questions? Expect a big night on Wednesday. If I get any more information from the school committee, I'll share it with you on email.
Take a nap on Wednesday.
Yeah, we have some time. You have some time to collect your thoughts tomorrow now. So I just ask that you're using the best you can and come in well armed for the school committee.
Thank you.
Tom,
Sure, Judy, what's up?
I got distracted for a quick minute here. Well, maybe it was 2 minutes. Are you canceling tomorrow night's meeting? I saw it on the town website.
Yeah, tomorrow night, Judy, is canceled. We'll be back in here on Wednesday for schools and discussion about police and fire and other matters.
And when did you want to hear from us about the departments that we interviewed?
Next week, Judy, you can
Okay, perfect.
send me an email and I'll put you on the agenda.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Judy. Anybody have a motion? Motion, second by Steve. All in favor? Aye. This meeting is adjourned. See you all on Wednesday. Thank you, Milton. Thank you, Warrant Committee.